All right, this is the regularly scheduled board meeting of Community Consolidated School District 64, Park Ridge-Niles. Today is Thursday, March 16th, 2023. The board met at 6 o'clock in closed session under 2C1, which is the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. And under 2C2, the placement, or 2C10, the placement of individual students in special education programs or other matters relating to individual students. Let us do a roll call again.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Lubinsky, yes. Pearl,
Yes.
Sotos,
Yes.
Celis,
Here.
Tuzios.
Yes.
Quorum carries.
Okay, and now let us stand up for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as far as opening remarks, I just want to give a thank you to the board was updated on ELF, our Elementary Learning Foundation. And over the past 25 years, ELF has raised over 800,000 for our district for innovative teaching was really what their mission was. And so furniture, coding kits, lab supplies, all sorts of things. I think they brought the community get together at events like Casino Night, the Halloween Hustle that happened in October. And I think ALF right now is going, it is dissolved. And I think we're going to then think about how this might be revamped or restarted in a different way. But I really want to just thank those who have volunteered for ALF over the past years and how they've bettered our district and making it. I love innovation, so I love to hear this part. Okay. And so we're going to then go to another recognition, and it's the St. Baldrick's fundraiser.
Yes. So when I first came to the district, it was right after St. Baldrick's had happened, so I hadn't been able to experience it yet. And then with the pandemic, so this was my opportunity last week. I was able to see it at both Lincoln and Emerson. It is a huge piece of the community. And Chris used the word staggering, and I think that's a good word for the amount raised. It's almost $450,000, and it is the largest amount raised for St. Baldrick's in the world, just to kind of understand the perspective. And I think it's something that's very unique and special to District 64. It seems to, have started a number of years ago with a teacher and has grown to this massive experience for our students, for our parents, for our community. So it was very exciting to see last week. It is a staggering amount of money, and the generosity of this community is amazing. And we look forward to them continuing with it in the future. Thank you.
I would agree. The excitement, I was at Lincoln this year, and just the excitement from parents and staff and administrators and students, it's pretty contagious in there.
Yeah, if it's okay, I actually attended the one at Emerson too, and it was fantastic. I thought it was well done, and also I think it's just great in terms of seeing the kids grow as citizens of our community and and the world in a way when they reach number one. And in my other spare time, I'm also an assistant scoutmaster at Troop 76 over at Roosevelt that they meet. And I made the meeting just in time late on Monday, and about half the boys had shaven hair. So it was good to see that so many people were taking part. So awesome.
And to add to that, this is, I think pre-COVID, when the last time we did the full, we were second or third, maybe, I think, behind Nevada or Las Vegas. So to be first this time, it just shows that, our community really embraces this fundraiser, and they do a really good job with it. And everyone involved who runs it does an amazing job running it. So I just want to thank everybody involved.
Mhm. Well, and the last thing was 2019, so it was good to have it back, from 4 years. Uh, all right. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for the support. Let us now hear about Carpenter School. Thanks, Brett.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you, Board of Education, for allowing me the opportunity to come here to provide some info, brag about Carpenter School a little bit. I'd like to welcome Dr. Olson, all of our district administrators, community members, prospective board members, whoever else is here, and everyone else is watching on video. While I have the opportunity, I wanted to publicly thank Dr. Olson for his service and support over the previous couple years that you've been here. And I wanted to tell you that you've been a great boss. So thank you. A little bit about Carpenter. I've done this about 11 years, coming to the board to give some presentations. My wonderful assistant principal, Mr. Degman, isn't here this evening. He's out of the country. I allowed it to happen because last year, in his first year as being assistant principal, he had to come and do this presentation while I was out of town. So I said, okay, fine, I'll let you miss this one. So he'd love to be here. I'm sure he's with us here in spirit. So that said, here's the clicker. Advance. Okay. Just have a couple agenda items that I wanted to talk on. A little bit about Carpenter, a little bit about some of the new things that we're doing, and some of the social emotional community building that we're doing. This about Carpenter, for those of you who don't know, we're considered a little school with a big heart. And this is also going to be for perhaps some new board members or prospective new board members that might be getting to know our school a little bit. Every year at Carpenter, we have a theme that we like to follow. This year, our theme is engaged. And talking about being engaged in academics and behavior, it's a purposeful focus on being present and being committed, goal-oriented in all aspects of our teaching and learning, especially coming out of the difficult COVID years that we've been in. It's really important to kind of get everyone back re-engaged and present in our school building and our learning. For those of you who don't know, perhaps new board members, Carpenter is the smallest school in the district. Currently, we have 437 students. We typically have about 3 to 4 homerooms in every grade level, where some of the larger schools might have 4 to 5 homerooms. We have excellent kids. We have awesome staff, and we have terrific parents. Okay, I'm done. Thank you. No, but community, in terms of community building, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing this year to focus on that engagement. We have an emphasis on our positive school culture and our climates through our relationships, which is so important, through specifically designed community building activities with our students and a strong partnership with our PTO. I'd like to come up here and talk about our academics and our schools, but all of our schools could do that, right? That's our focus every single day, is academics and teaching and learning. We could spend all of our time doing that tonight, but all 8 schools do that, so there's nothing much different amongst Carpenter and all the other wonderful schools in our district. What we do focus on at Carpenter is our systems, and I tried to link that up here, just talking about really being very purposeful and focused on our instruction, using the assessment and then linking that together for data-driven decisions. And that's what all of our schools across the district do, but that's one of our big focuses at Carpenter and our teaming. And we feel that all of that work that we put together by working together with our teams and our teachers, it does have a positive impact on our academic performance and our standardized assessments. One of the things that we did new this year, again, I want to try to focus a little bit on some of the new initiatives that we took this year from past presentations. Something that we did this year was focusing on our MTSS system. This visual that you see up there is what we call a temperature check. It's something that we installed this year to just kind of do some regular check-ins with our teams and our teachers. And this is an actual temperature check. We've redacted the names on the left-hand side. But what happens is every other month, our teachers fill out just a quick check on how their students are doing in reading, math, and writing and behavior. And we've got it set up, color-coded in such a way where we could easily look at it and kind of see what's going on. There's 4 categories that they can put their children in, whether it's I don't have a concern, I'm kind of watching something, I'm actually doing something, or I have a significant concern. As you can see in this particular homeroom, we had student H, where the teacher was concerned about their reading, math, and writing. So it gives us the ability as the administration and teams to check in on our teachers and see what exactly is going on in the classroom, where they might need some help or support, and how we can provide guidance and support to those teachers. And then they do this every other month, so we're looking for growth, and we're continuing to look for patterns and trends in our systems. A lot of focus on our social emotional learning, which drives a positive culture and climate in our school building. We're looking to refine our processes with our check-in checkout systems. This is just an example of the template that we use. It's kind of like a tier one, tier two kind of model of some of our life rules are focused on being respectful, responsible, safe, and prepared. This particular check-in checkout sheet, so our students carry that around with them and they get evaluated on being respectful, responsible, and safe. And then we have someone that meets with them at the beginning of the day to talk about what their day is going to look like and kind of set the right focus for them for the day, and then follows up with them at the end of the day to see how their day was going. So from our temperature checks or from some of our interventions, these certain students might get put on this check-in checkout system. We have one of our fun things that we do at Carpenters. We have positive office referrals. So when our students are going above and beyond, they get referred to the office. We've been doing this for a long time, right? It used to be on paper, and it used to be on green slips of paper. We eventually moved it to digital, and just the whole green slip thing kind of stuck. So that's why they're called green slips. We made this board actually green to kind of remind us of that. So what happens is a positive office referral comes into us through a Google form. Mr. Degman has a email template that we send out to our parents so that they're aware that their child was doing something exceptional at school. And then we have a large bingo board. This is kind of a digital picture of that. And these are all actually Carpenter students that earn positive office referrals. And then if we get a bingo in a row across or column up and down, those 10 students then get rewarded with, I'll show you a picture of it, but we also include this in our video announcements every single day. We include this in our announcements every week so that our kids can see where they're at on the bingo board, and if one of them has a chance of possibly earning a book. And here's Ben. He happened to be on our bingo board, and he earned a book. 10 students did. Our PTO helped us fund a new purchase of a vending machine. And so when our bingo winners get bingo, they get a token and they go down to the vending machine and they get to pick out a book. Another positive thing that we started out this year, Mr. Degman had suggested it from previous school district that he was in. It's just a way to break up the kids. So at the beginning of this year, we took all 437 of our kids and we divided them amongst all of our staff, including, specials teachers, instructional tech coach, technologists. We had 39 staff. So we divided all of our K through 5 students into 39 different groups. So we call them Cougar Dens because we're the Carpenter Cougars. So they get to go to their Cougar Den facilitator or leader, and then we do different activities. We try to do it like every other month. Next year, we're hoping to kind of increase the amount of time that we're able to do that. But the fun thing is that we've got in every Cougar Den, there's kindergartners, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth graders. So our younger kids get the opportunity to get to meet some of the older kids. Our older kids get the opportunities to be good role models and supports for our younger students. And it just kind of keeps them all young and kind of helps to develop that community feel that we have at Carpenter. Mr. Tureen, one of our fourth grade teachers, was so excited to get some kindergartners in his den. Mrs. Belmonte in the lower left is one of our kindergarten teachers, and she had some older students. And then, of course, our instructional tech coach wanted to kind of, he's a big Star Wars fan like myself, so he had his den pose in front of our green screen at Carpenter, and they were all in the Millennium Falcon. One of the other things that we're doing, which is very, very fresh today, is every March, we like to celebrate March Madness. And this year, what was a little bit different, we used to tie in March Madness with our bingo board, but this year, every single homeroom was assigned a team in the tournament, and then every single den got a team in the tournament. And so whichever team ends up winning the tournament, that den or that homeroom gets to play a game of basketball with myself and Mr. Degman. So we're going to see how that goes. So there's obviously been some teams that have been eliminated, but these are all of our homerooms. Those are the teams that they're associated with. And then we also had the team colors. So today, our students were encouraged to wear their team colors of their homeroom. Tomorrow, despite the fact that it's St. Patrick's Day, they're also encouraged, if they wanted to wear the colors of their den. So every student at Carpenter is attached to 2 teams in March Madness. And we push it out to our parents and just say, hey, this is a great opportunity to kind of expand, learn a little bit about geography, learn about higher education, learn about teamwork, sportsmanship, disappointment, the Cinderella stories, all those things. So we like to have a little bit of fun with it. Next Friday, we're having a cosmic lunch with our students. We got a bunch of black lights going on in the lunchroom. We're gonna have the Sweet 16 banners up all around. The kids are getting glow things, and we're just gonna have a little bit of fun to kind of also celebrate what we hope to be is the end of the IAR testing by that time. So um, well, a new program that we brought in too for community building is we're doing pacers. So every Friday when the weather's nice in the fall and the spring, it's almost like trackathon during our lunch and recess time. Our kids all go out there, they kind of run laps. It brings our parents into the school building so that they can kind of help us count laps, and the kids get little cougar paws to put on their wristbands. Just another great community building thing, especially for our kids that always don't like to participate in sports at recess. It gives them something that they can do during that time to kind of feel a part of our school community. And we talk about making school a fun place to be. Yes, our focus is on academics and learning, but in order to do that, you need to have a positive school environment and a positive school culture and a place where your kids want to be every single day. So we make that fun with our PTO. They bought us some indoor recess supplies. You see that giant Connect Four board there for indoor recess. We had our annual talent show there. The picture of the girls there in the middle. We did that about 2 months ago. And then in the beginning of the school year in fall, we had our first annual Fall Fest outside, where all of our kids, whether or not you celebrated Halloween or not, we're all outdoors having fun. All of our room parents had different activities for the kids to play. Lastly, getting our parenting community involved. About a month or so ago, we had our snowball dance. There was just a picture of all of it. That Lincoln, our school, allowed us to go over there because we had a very large number, so we appreciated their support. But we also want to make Carpenter, make the community a fun place to be, and that's kind of what we see ourselves being. So for those of you who don't know Carpenter, that's who we are. We're excited about the growth and the progress of our students, and I appreciated the opportunity to come here to tell you a little bit about them tonight. So thank you. Okay.
All right, Brett, thank you. You'll have to let us know when that basketball game is. We can cheer you on or maybe not. I don't know. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, now is the this is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. Each speaker is given 3 minutes to address the board. Comments may be made on almost any matter related to the operation of schools, but we ask that you refrain from making comments concerning individual students or staff members. The board uses this time to listen to community questions and concerns, but will not respond immediately to requests for information. Additionally, the board cannot take formal action on non agenda items. Contact the board president by email if you wish to discuss your topic further. Please come forward to the microphone and state your name and, if comfortable, your address for the minutes. So we have, I think, Tom Fisher. If you can come to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Tom Fisher. I am a D64 parent with 2 children enrolled in the district. For those that know me, advocating for our children is a passion of mine, with a special focus on special education. There have been many distractions over the last couple of years that have drawn the board away from some very important issues in our district, of which one is special education. I was happy to see the board fulfill its commitment to a follow-up audit on special education. I was disappointed that there are still so many recommendations from the LMT audit conducted in 2018 not being fully addressed. Specifically, 3 main foundations of special education. 1. MTSS. This is a multi-tiered system of supports, which is the framework that helps educators identify students' academic, behavioral, social emotional strengths and challenges, and provide support for the students based on their needs. 2. The continuum of services. The continuum of services in special education identifies different service delivery models to provide specially designed instruction to a student with a disability. 3. To move away from a program-based focus and into a student-based focus. Instead of fitting a child into an existing program, but instead providing the needs of the individual child in accordance with their individual education program. In addition, Atlantic Research Partners was contracted to conduct an individualized school report to include findings and recommendations. Although a district-wide report was provided and made public, to my knowledge, the detailed school-specific reports and stakeholders' summaries have not. To truly work on fixing concerns and issues, the devil is in the details, which is full transparency on what is working and what is not at school level, along with the input of stakeholders and not just a district level summary. In 2018, when the first audit was conducted, a child that was in first grade is now in sixth grade. These children have missed out on the best supports the district could have provided that will affect their successful trajectory in middle school, high school, and adulthood. Let's not continue to do this to our next generation of children. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Okay. All right. Come on to the podium.
Hi, I'm Rachel Georgakis. I'm a parent of two District 64 students and a candidate for the District 64 school board in the upcoming election. I'd like to address the board around the current superintendent search. There are a few components that are really important for the board to consider in order to hire the candidate that will best serve the needs of our students, our staff, and our community. One is including district staff and educators as important stakeholder groups in the final candidate interviews and taking their feedback into sincere consideration. The next superintendent will spend the majority of their time working with the educators in our district. That working relationship is incredibly important to our district continuing to grow and serve students. I value our district staff's feedback on who can best serve D64. Another is waiting until after the new board is seated to make the final hiring decision. I understand that you as a board have the right to hire the superintendent before then, but I believe that will only further contribute to a lack of trust within the community. The atmosphere in District 64 is different now than it was in 2019 when the board hired Dr. Olson in a similar timeframe. We didn't have any controversy surrounding the exit of Dr. Hines, and there was more transparency and trust surrounding the superintendent search as it was a hybrid search and not closed as it is now. This decision is going to have lasting impacts on our schools, and I believe our community should have a say through their vote on who is making that decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other public comments? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, at this next is the approval of the meeting agenda. Any board members want to make additions, amendments, deletions?
Yeah, I'd like to, make a proposal that I think that our board agenda every month kind of misses something. It really, after what I've seen in the community, there seems to be a lack of understanding of some of our policies, and I think that. In particular, let me give you an example. Like last night, I was at a public meeting and somebody was equating book banning with age appropriate material. And in reality, when you look at our policy, for example, 7:310, restriction on publications, elementary schools, we have a very specific policy there that says that students are prohibited from accessing socially inappropriate or inappropriate due to maturity of the level of the students, certain materials, including but not limited to material that is obscene, pornographic, perversely lewd, vulgar, contains indecent and vulgar languages, or sexting as defined by school board policy and student handbooks. So I think when people make those statements, because of the lack of education around our policies, that they create a wedge between the community and our school librarians who are doing a great job in terms of enforcing these sort of policies. So I think it might be a good idea for us to have on our agenda once a month, just 5 minutes talking about a policy that might be topical, and I propose that going forward.
So there's nothing on the agenda tonight. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, but I think it might be a good idea going forward to have something like that.
Okay. So something on policy at each meeting, and it seems like the
Just like a 5 minute, like, oh, this is this policy. This is a good reminder of what this does.
okay.
So we have a policy committee, so why don't you just do an update? The policy committee could just do an update every meeting.
Yeah, like pick a policy once a month.
Who would pick them? I mean, just
Yeah, it could be depending if it's topical at the time, like this one was. Sorry, it depending if it was topical at the time, like this one. Just to make sure that there's a good understanding of our community that we have these policies and what they mean, and not try to create like a wedge in the district between people when statements are in an uneducated way are made like that.
So I think going forward, the policy committee can look at a proposal of a policy they want to talk about at the April meeting.
Would it be possible to add something to today's meeting, that maybe a discussion or just a an update from somebody, if there's someone here that can give it, on the we had several meetings ago discussed the policy, or this district's, I don't know if we even have a policy, but the way we would handle, I'm trying to be delicate with it, but the way we would handle gender issues in our schools, and uses of bathrooms and uh, uh, locker rooms and of the sort. And we were supposed to follow up and have that discussion. We haven't for several meetings, so I'm just wondering, can we have a small discussion about it tonight, or potentially put it on the next board meeting agenda, so that we know, where we're going. I think the discussion was that we don't have a policy. We're waiting on, if I'm
Case
tell me if
law.
I'm not, we're waiting on certain case law before we create a policy. But I believe there were some board members that were interested in having a statement put out to the community on where we currently stand, how we would handle the situation in the interim, or what the district's quote unquote policy is now on how to handle that, in case, let's say, a student comes to us tomorrow and says, I'd like to use, a boys' bathroom, and they're of another gender, so on and so forth. And I remember me asking that we do this so that our community is aware of how we would handle it, even if it's not specific, because we can't be specific on
Right.
certain situations, but at least it's some sort of outline as to this is what would happen. A student would come to us. We would then do this. Then we would do this. Then we would discuss it with the parents, and we discuss it with this. Because I think there's a miscommunication with the community that just thinks that any kid can walk into any room and go to any teacher and say, I want this, and then they'll automatically get it. And I don't think that's what our district does. I think there's a lot more involved in how we address those situations. And I would like for our community to know how we address them. And the reason for the request back then, and for the same request now, is to avoid, when it does happen, to avoid having our community kind of be blindsided by, oh my God, their child came home and said, hey, I had a boy or a girl in my locker room, and they had no clue how we were handling that. So, and I think we just stopped talking about it after the last time, and it was several meetings ago.
It was December when we had our training. And so let's look at, I mean, I don't know if other board members, I would say if we can do April, just because then we can be more prepared to have that conversation. Um, other board members want to weigh in?
that's fine, but we would have to check with the attorney's schedule, who is working on it too, because we would want her there.
If
So
it's just a
we'll see if she's
discussion,
available.
I don't,
Well,
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I think we've, at least I was okay with the fact that this district needed to wait until certain case law came down, certain other cases that are still open. The state makes certain, decisions and gives us some sort of direction. However, in the meantime, we're still dealing with these issues as a district. We don't just ignore them because the case laws, it hasn't come down. So we do handle them in a certain way. I'm requesting that we put that out to the public, so they know how we handle it in the interim.
I think in particular, yeah, the big thing is right, is transparency here
Yes.
so that people understand the process, and I think that's what we were getting towards in the last meeting, whether we need a policy now or we start drafting one, but the case law is uncertain. The clear thing is it just helps the community when there's transparency around a process, and that's the key thing, because I found that the rhetoric did tone down for a while after that. We had that conversation and we had that education session. There was the transparency helped. Um,
So is
Uh,
are
I
are
mean,
we okay?
just to beat away, and it's a pretty delicate topic. So I agree with you. I think we'd want to be prepared and not just have something on the spot today. So I
Yeah.
think it's probably more appropriate for April than tonight. If
I'm okay
that's
with.
okay.
I'm
Is that
okay with.
okay?
I'm absolutely
Okay.
okay with that.
I think we can look at what would, but I think it's April just so we can be ready.
And
Okay.
I just brought it up because after we had that little seminar, it seems as it seemed like we just kind of that was enough and we're done. But the request by me, and I think I had some support from some of the other board members, was to still get something out to our public so they understand that this process is not just someone asks, we give, that there's a lot more involved in it. And there's, this is how we handle it. And it's done case by case and just something that the community can wrap their brain around. Because right now, no one knows how we handle the
Okay.
situation.
Yep. No, I think it's we hear you.
I'm glad you're hearing me.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on the agenda? Just things that anything else there? Okay. All right. Now,
But since how about a curriculum update as well? Like what if there's anything new for curriculum next year that's being recommended?
so are you looking for a district curriculum update? What does that mean, Tom?
I
I mean,
mean,
this is not for the agenda tonight, but it's looking for. Are you looking for
I
that
think
for next
Tom
time?
might be talking about the fact that the strategic plan, I think, calls for certain updates to the curriculum at certain times. And I think maybe just one update. Is
yeah.
that what you want?
The strategic plan? Is that what?
No, the strategic plan has in there that the curriculum is updated periodically in certain topics. I think what he's asking is what's in the cycle this coming year,
Yeah,
like
when
reading, science. What's coming?
Okay. Okay.
and if it was inappropriate to ask for it for April, and you need me to request it for a adjustment in or request an addition or amendment to tonight's, then I can go ahead and do that, and I can request that we discuss it tonight. But that just makes no sense because we would need someone here to give us
No,
that
I don't.
update.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think that. I think we can certainly look at what that would look like for the April agenda. Because I think English, yeah, English and language arts is up for curriculum. Well, we can talk about that in April. Okay. All right.
Well, do you want me to?
Go ahead.
So,
No, I mean,
well, I'll
are you
address
on
it then.
policy? Yeah, let's look. All right, let's try to stick to our. Okay, all right. So let's look at. We're going to move on to A3, which is the oath for our newly appointed board member. All right. So Dimitri. All right. You can. Shall we stand? I think we usually stand. Okay. Yeah, it's long, so get ready.
It's not that long.
Yeah, no, it is. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here is the board policy. All right, so I, and then state your name, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the officer of the member of Board of Education of Park Ridge-Niles Community Consolidated School District 64.
So I, Dimitri Tuzios, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Park Ridge-Niles Community Consolidated School District 64, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
Okay. Yeah, so I swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the district's assets.
I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that the board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Park Ridge-Niles Community Consolidated School District 64.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Park Ridge-Niles Community Consolidated School District 64.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to obtain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of the students in our community schools to advance the vision for Park Ridge-Niles Community Consolidated School District 64.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community schools to advance the vision for Park Ridge-Niles Community Consolidated School District 64.
And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and professional development.
And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision of the board, the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
All right. Welcome to the board.
All right.
Thank you. All right. You did it, Dimitri. Okay.
Easy peasy.
Nice. All right. Next, we are going to talk about this is what we discussed at the last board meeting, the construction at Lincoln School in the wall with the water retention or water issues. So let us. Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
so I think I'll just start with a quick summary. Is that the board may remember at the last meeting you were approving work on the Lincoln Wall in the LRC, and the discussion was about the past work that the district had done, and the board was interested in just asking some questions around whether you may or may not decide to act on work that was done in the past. So we have one of our attorneys, James Levy, here on the call. And James, I don't know if you wanted to start with anything or do you just want to take questions?
Hello. I can take questions. I mean, if you want me to give a brief summary of what we talked about, Dr. Olson, I'm happy to do that and kind of run from there. Or if the board prefers to ask some questions, that's fine too.
Why don't you give the quick summary just so they have it?
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I'm James Levy. I was contacted by both Dr. Olson and Dr. Parisi to discuss the moisture in the walls and the issues related to that. And discussing that with both of them, the first issue that came to mind was the date of when this originally was done. According to the memo that I got from March 6th, the construction was completed in 2017. So the first thing that I noticed then is here's a possible statute of limitations issue. For construction claim, you have 4 years from when you knew or should have known of the action giving rise to the lawsuit. So, in talking with both Dr. Olson and Dr. Parisi, I think this project, the original project of 17, predated both of them, so they didn't have any information related to if the district had knowledge, in 17, 18, or even early part of 19 on the project. So that as an outset item, that is something that could possibly bar an action, even if there were to be liability associated with anyone, whether it be the contractor or the architect. Um, so after that issue, again, I have not looked at the actual contract related to this because we are doing just a sort of terse summary here. Another thing would be to look into those contracts, and depending on what your architect contract says or your contractor agreement, some of those model agreements do shorten the statute of limitations. So that's another thing that we need to be aware of. In analyzing a claim of this nature, one thing that we would need to do is have someone come in and do an inspection and a report on the walls themselves to ascertain if there was some type of defect either in a standard of care applicable to one of the professionals that you were using at the time, or if there was an installation issue. That would have to be done generally by an expert that we would retain to look at it. I know there's been some analysis with respect to a remedy, but my understanding is neither of those reports were intended to ascertain if there was culpability with respect to the original folks who were involved in the project. So we would need to hire a third party to come out to do that type of work to see if we're able to ascertain if there is some type of responsibility associated with the moisture in the walls. After we were to get that type of report, then we could further analyze whether or not it would be appropriate to bring a suit against, again, most likely you look at the folks who designed and or spec the particular issue, and then the installers, and if there was a construction manager involved, those would be the parties that you're looking at. So that was the discussion I had with Dr. Parisi, excuse me, and Dr. Olson, from, again, kind of a high level here as to where we're at, what we're doing, and how we would proceed if we had a potential claim. So I'll open it up now to the board for any questions.
All right. Questions for the board? From the board. You're thinking, Tom.
No, I'm waiting for Garrett.
I think the question I have is maybe in your professional opinion, should we look into this further right now based on what you know?
Well, I can say usually when we have construction issues, we have in-house folks that support the complaint. And here I'm talking with Dr. Preeti and Mr. Bersani. It was my understanding that from their perspective, I know they're not necessarily experts in this, but they do have some experience, that it was their opinion that that this was something that was standard or occurs frequently, and it was not necessarily something that would stand out as an immediate issue that would raise to the level of wanting to investigate further by investing more legal fees. So, based on that discussion, because I don't have any independent knowledge of whether or not this moisture in the walls is something that is normal or not, I would have to rely on the third party. It doesn't appear, again, that there would make sense to go further. The extent of what I can do is look at your contract to make sure there's not a statute of limitations issue, see who the possible responsible parties are, but ultimately we would need to step in and get a third party to do a report. That is going to cost a decent sum of money, probably, I'm guessing, in the tune of $10,000 to maybe $30,000, depending on who you retain to come in and do it and do the report. I could be off on that, but just historically, when we hire experts, I can tell you pretty pretty much have never had, no matter what the issue is, a report that's cost less than 10. They usually go from up from there. So I don't, based on my interaction with folks, it seems to me that perhaps this is not something that there is legal culpability on. But again, to be certain, you have to hire an expert to tell us that there is.
Okay. Tom, you have a further question?
No, I mean the
I-
the, the cost of redoing of stripping the paint, uh, not necessarily the cost of doing any additional tuck pointing or lintel work on the outside, but the cost of stripping the paint from the inside and reconditioning that wall in a way where it looks presentable from the inside. I'd like to know what that cost is, because I think the last time we got a cost of the whole job that also included work on lintels, on tuck pointing the outside, actually identifying where the infiltration of the moisture is coming from, and so on. But the
Hello?
yes, are you not able?
There's a question close to me.
Yeah, it's not. It's are you? Can you hear me?
I think
I can hear you now.
so.
Okay.
And I
So
think the question's more for Tony. I think Tony's looking at, I think Tom wants to know just the cost of
yeah,
strip.
so just so you understand what I'm looking for is I'm asking if we know the cost of stripping the paint that's currently on the wall and then refinishing the inside of the wall so that it's presentable. Because after giving this a lot of thought and hearing what you had to say, uh, the the tuck pointing of the outside and the lintel work, I agree with you, would be very difficult to uh, apply some sort of fault to somebody else as to why we didn't do it sooner. However, the painting of the inside, which now we have to strip and refinish the inside of the wall so it looks presentable with no paint on it, we could have potentially avoided if the proper, if we were received the proper information the first time. So I'm trying to see the cost of that so that I can, you know, judge it or base it or compare it to the cost of getting an expert and then the cost of litigation to move forward and see where where uh, that the difference would be.
Tony, do you want to?
If you'd like me to comment on this, so when I brought in,
James, can you hear Tony?
can you hear me, James?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. So, so when we brought in Newman and Associates, and they pulled in 3 of the bid work, the scope was written by the architects that Newman had hired, independent other than the architects we've used in the past, obviously. And within the scope of work, it's layered of what to look for. One of them is the stripping of the walls in the interior, peeling back carpeting, looking for any obvious, signs of moisture, along with doing the outside, the lentils and some other areas of the terracotta and whatnot, so that they can see if there's further damage that needs to be addressed or not. That's what's in the scope of work. So to simply say, pull out this dollar or that dollar or this scope, the scope would have to be rewritten. We'd be going back to starting over again, if you will. So, and I'm not trying to say don't do that. I think that'll be answered within this scope, but I would
Yeah,
advise. I mean,
I know I fully understand. I appreciate the response. It was more of I wanted to ask the question so
yeah,
that
I mean,
you
I
could
can give you
answer it.
numbers.
It's going to be very, from what was presented to us last meeting, it's going to be very
Right.
difficult to say that of the 200 and something thousand, 75,000 is going to be the cost to strip the inside. And
Right.
so
You wouldn't do one without the other. I can tell you that from Newman's
so
vantage point.
right, the reason for the question wasn't whether we should do it or shouldn't
Right.
do it, or it was more if there was a mistake by somebody in the past,
Right.
the additional cost to this district would be having to strip a wall that didn't have paint on it in the first place and resurfacing it so it's presentable on the inside, because we're not going to put paint back on it for at least a little while until we know what's going on. That would be the additional cost. So let's assume that, just for argument's sake, that cost is 50,000, and we're paying 10,000 for a report just so that we can have some sort of argument to then pay another 50,000 in attorney's fees to fight an insurance company. You know, I'm starting to judge whether it's in the best interest of the taxpayer to even engage in this fight. It would be different if you came to me and said, "Oh my Lord, the interior work of the library to get it back to where it was before we painted it is going to cost 250,000." Then I might want to invest 10,000 in a report and potentially see if we can, get air and emissions from somebody to cover that cost. But if the numbers start getting really, really close, I have to really consider what's in the best interest of the taxpayer at that point. That's why I asked the question.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. And
So,
again, it's this is a total scope, so let's keep that in mind. I mean, to just give the dollar amount and just do that work. I mean, I guess if that's what you're asking.
So Tony, if this isn't something that, if we can just get an idea of statute of limitations on something like this, if this is something that can wait, we can do the work, figure out what the problem was. That report can be added to an independent person's report in the future, and if it turns out that there was there's more information that points towards somebody in the past making a mistake, we don't have to go after an air and omissions pursuit now. If statute of limitations doesn't, if we're not running up against a wall of statute of limitations, we can do it after we do the work.
James mentioned that we might be that, right? He said we might
What do you
have a
mean?
statute of limitations issue, so he has to look into that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, but James, did you hear that question?
He has to check.
Did you hear the question about? No, more importantly, he suggested that they go forward with the work and maybe find out something while completing the work and then go back at that point. And I thought when you and I talked, that might be problematic because you're supposed to status quo stop everything before you did the inspection.
So the issue becomes, and maybe I didn't fully understand the type of work, that when reading the memo, I thought that basically we strip the paint off of it and let it sit and dry. Is that the scope of the work?
So yeah, that's part of it. So we're going to investigate the outside by opening lentil areas and terracotta areas above by the gutter areas. We're also going to strip the entire inside of the two east and west walls, bring it down to bare brick, and then investigate on that side if we've got some damage of brick and some indications that we need to open up a little bit. A couple of layers. Let's keep in mind this wall is 14 inches thick.
Yeah. So the
layer after brick layer after brick layer. So if to see if there's any cavities from the above roof, if there's any indication. I mean, you can't see what you can't see. All that was measured by Newman Associates for the water mitigation to determine it was infrared meters along with moisture meters to determine that there has been moisture and that we're still retaining water, right? So that's what's led us to this part.
So this part, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is more investigative than it is repair. We would be stripping.
That's right. Word repair.
That price that we're paying for is to strip the interior paint.
Correct.
Get that wall open and clear, breathing.
Right.
Go to the outside, tap some bricks, check the terracotta, look for infiltration of water from lintels. Then we would get a bill for what it would cost to make those repairs. The repairs of that stuff is not part of the proposal that was brought last time.
Right.
So
there may be some additional costs, correct?
Right. So having said that, I believe that since we would be approving a investigative procedure, that it wouldn't prevent us from doing the investigation and then seeking reimbursement for it. I do agree that if we started making corrections, it would handcuff us as to whether a prevailing party or another party that may be liable would be obligated to reimburse us for it, because you have to litigate that before you go ahead and move forward with it, unless there's an emergency situation and you have to close up a roof or something, and then you deal with that later. But in our situation, I think we're approving more of an investigative situation, which I believe allows us the opportunity to do that work first.
Right.
And then this board or the next board can discuss whether they want to, once they get the information,
Right.
They can discuss whether they want to go forward with seeking, a claim against another party.
Correct. So, like I have here from the studies we've done, the pictures, the moisture readings, all of that is going to continue on through this process, right? So, the goal is to make the wall breathe again, right? And then investigate any further damage. Any delays in that process is going to have consequences of August. I'll tell you that right now. So let's be mindful of that. And it's not that I'm not trying to talk you out of the project. I'm just saying if we
What's worst case scenario?
worst case scenario, you're gonna do what Tom has said last week and what he's done personally in his own building in the past, and that is strip it and then seal it and then go back and redo that again. It's a maintenance issue. And it's a continuous maintenance issue from every 2 to 5 years. You're gonna have to redo the wall on each side until the wall needs severe repair. That's the suggestion and recommendation from the guys that do water mitigation for a living. So, it's a matter of do we want to know now?
So, Gareth, are you asking if we do nothing, what is the worst case scenario?
No, what's the worst case scenario if we started opening up the wall and found that there was a
You
lot
don't
of
know.
damage?
Nobody knows.
Well,
that.
the paint's not holding anything back from inside, so it's not as if we strip this paint that
No,
we're
yeah, I
all of a sudden
understand.
going to have water gushing.
The paint stripped, removed. Now you have the bare wall. What's the consequence of the paint or the wall retaining the water for this long a period since it was painted, right?
Oh, what is the worst case scenario? Oh, well,
If you had to tear down the wall,
nobody can answer that question.
because you have to
Gareth,
take the
honestly,
roof
till
off.
open
You
walls.
know?
no. I'm no expert in this,
No.
but I will say that we're not looking at a situation where that whole wall has deteriorated to the point where we have to rebuild that wall. Right now, we're trying to prevent bricks and mortar from deteriorating,
Right.
so that doesn't happen. But I personally don't believe, from what I saw and from what I read, that we're anywhere near that at this moment.
Okay.
And that is correct. That's the indication I got from all their experts out in the field. So every time there was a visit by them or their architects or their specialists, we were there. I was there. And these are professionals that could look at a wall and look at it differently than you and I, right?
Yeah.
And while nobody can see through 14 inches thick, but there's other indicators that tell you that there's something else to look for. So I think we're going to be fine.
Okay.
I think is what we're getting the message on. And I think Tom's right. I think it's just a matter of let's just go back to a bare wall, let this thing breathe. I did say in the notes here we are going to go back in a year and measure it again, correct? So, I think between investigating outside and interior and then letting it breathe for a year and then letting the numbers speak for himself on what the infrared numbers will tell us, if we don't see anything that's obvious, I think we'll know a better story in a year.
And to be clear, we're not talking about the entire wall here. The entire wall is not bleeding water
No,
through.
but if the wall
There's
here's
sections.
here's my worst case scenario in
Right.
my mind is that walls deteriorate to the point where they could fail at some point in the future, and you're saying it's not anywhere near that.
Well, no, I'm not an expert. So what I'm saying though is
Okay.
from what I heard, we're talking about specific areas of the wall are getting
But to
infiltrated
me,
with
we need to-
moisture.
Gareth?
It's not the entire wall where it's like, oh my God, this whole.
Gareth?
So
Yeah. There's not. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's not one wall. It's 14 inches of brick layers.
How many
okay?
do you think it is?
You
3,
got
4?
a brick that's 3.5 to 4 inches, depending upon when it was made, what era, right?
Yeah.
So, and it depends if it's sitting at vertical or if it's sitting horizontal. I don't know. I can't see inside the 14 inches.
Okay.
We're gonna know when we open up a few, right? It's not like you have block that you're using today. So you use, cement blocks now and on a wall, then you put face brick over it, right?
Yeah.
That's today's standards. That was not the standard decades ago.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
again, and then who knows if there was work done 50 years ago by somebody when they put in the windows. We don't know what we don't know. So,
I guess what I do hear from you that we do know is that if we would, what James said, to get a third party investigator to look into this, that will put the timeline of the project behind. And we're at it could potentially.
well, exactly.
And
Denise.
so I think that's concerning from my perspective.
Very
Yeah,
concerning
but to
'cause-
me, right? If I break it down into there's a project to take the paint off the wall, we can understand then, or potentially by watching it for the next year, whether there's a real issue. And to me, then the claim would become a latent claim on because a lot of the talk in the insurance industry around this is always about the latency of the claim. So that it's only when that claim emerges, the latent issue emerges, does that clock start ticking, is my understanding. So we kind of know around now
Right.
sorry, we might know in a year if if all of a sudden we find some sort of measurement issue or something with the wall after watching it for a year that there is an issue. That issue is then starts the clock ticking. So I think we got time. So I'm in favor of just I appreciate the conversation, but this is just one to remember for the next board. I think in a year's time, if anything comes up from that watching the wall in a
Right.
year's time, then we come back to this issue.
Well, we've got real
Well,
time
Gareth, you'll be
records
here.
here, so let's we got 2 years of records here of readings from a company, independent company that does this for a living, right? And we're gonna have a third one in a year, so I think we should be satisfied.
I just ask that we preserve our right to seek reimbursement from somebody, and by starting the process by approving what you're presenting, so because that is the first step of us doing our due diligence to uncover what the problem is.
Right.
I think it actually might even be premature to try to sue somebody now because we don't even know. But we'd actually be doing the right thing by moving forward and stripping the wall to figure it out, and then we can determine then whether there's anyone to blame or it's just a situation.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you to
All right.
the attorney.
All right, James, thank you. Tony, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye now.
Okay. All right. All right. Good discussion. Let's move on to our next, the Student Services Action Plan. All right. So Alicia's coming up.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We are so excited to present to you the works completed so far from our Student Services Action Planning Committee. I'm Alicia Schmeise, the Director of Student Services here in District 64. And with me, I have Karen Hess, who is a special education teacher over at Emerson School. Not to brag about Karen, but she has done this work for a very long time and was such an incredibly valuable member of our committee. I also want to thank we have people in the audience tonight that have come out to support from our various groups. We have a PT3 member here. We have other teachers that are here that were on the committee and some administrators as well. Thank you, Carol, for also participating in the process. And for everyone for just letting us present tonight. I hope that tonight's presentation captures just the eagerness, the thoughtfulness, and the excitement that went into doing this work, and just getting to understand the process of the committee from start to where we are now, coming to you. The purpose of the Student Services Action Plan Committee was to identify and develop goals for the Student Services team. These goals would then allow us to plan our short and long-term work and develop our measurements of success. So I'm grateful again just for the unwavering dedication of all the members, and I'm thrilled to be walking you through this process tonight. So the first step of our work was to develop our committee. We were committed to involving all stakeholders. So this consisted of parents, students, staff members, and we wanted to make sure we could capture everyone's voice and make sure that they were included in our process. So back in September, we had sent an email out to staff and also to families inquiring if they had an interest in participating. And it's just explaining the commitments of our meetings that we're going to be moving forward. So with that, we had several respondents and were able to select 30 members on our committee. Now, unfortunately, we had 3 people that weren't able to come to all events, but 27 people were participating throughout, and we're grateful for their time with us. So the first day that we all gathered together, we were over at Lincoln. This was Friday, October 14th, and this was Friday evening. So after school, we all got together in the Lincoln's LRC, and we just went over our purpose. Dr. Olson had opened with just explaining exactly what we were hoping to accomplish, and then I was able to provide an update from where we were as a student services team. This included just going over what our continuum of services looked like, the eligibility breakdown across just our kiddos, our students, and also just making some connections with what had happened previously with the May 2022 audits from Atlantic Research Partners, and just making sure that that was our mindset as we began this process forward. So, with this mindset, we then began our SWOT analysis. So, as you may be familiar, this is when we looked at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so Dr. Olson had walked us through all of this and made sure that this is what we would be doing over the course of that Friday night and Saturday. So when we looked at strengths, this was something that everybody did individually. Everyone had time to think and just go through all of the wonderful things that we bring to the table in District 64. So the common themes in looking at all the responses is up here. So we had recognized that staff was a huge strength of the district, and this is whether it be staff members, whether it be paraprofessional, like this includes paraprofessionals, our related service providers, BCBAs, assistive technology specialists, administrators. Every single category was represented and celebrated in being seen as having a strength to the district. And everyone in these responses, we're also just talking about how the staff overwhelmingly had this dedication to making sure all of our kids were growing. This was also a strength that was identified in the initial audit in 2022. So you'll see a lot of connections back and forth between what the committee was thinking and things that were identified in the audit. Another thing that was identified as a huge strength was our resources. So this included assessment tools, our robust library of intervention and curricular resources, district technology, our assistive technology, and just opportunities for people to be able to engage in professional development. Family and school partnership was another strength that was identified, as well as just our approach to collaboration and communication among teams, staff, and families. As well as even the caseload sizes for teachers and related service providers. Most importantly, though, I think that what everyone had said in terms of the strength was just looking at the focus on students. And our students are our strength. Our students are what makes us who we are. And this is why we do what we do. So I think it's really important to recognize that all the committee members just knew that the students are what makes us so special in District 64 as well. In looking at the areas of growth, our committee was tasked with also identifying weaknesses, which we defined as liabilities that exist within the district and among the stakeholders. So this is something that we unpacked in small groups, having all the committee members share their perspectives and perceptions of internal challenges that the student services team was facing. While District 64 currently provides a continuum of services and supports for all of our students, one of the things that the committee members identified just as a challenge is sometimes it can be difficult to program to meet the individual needs of students. And that was also, as you can see, something that was also brought up and has that common thread between the May 2022 audits. They had also made reference to this in their recommendations, their very first recommendation, which just talked about making sure that we are looking and examining our continuum of services. They also talked about this in adopting inclusive classrooms, which there was the third recommendation. And then number 10, reevaluating specialized educational offerings in District 64. So there were common threads in everything that we were able to say, like, yep, this is something that we see and we need. Another thing that we had looked at was just the consistency of approach. So I think that talked about our consistency when approaching special education practices. Some examples provided in this area were the inconsistency between transitions between buildings, whether it be from preschool to kindergarten or 5th grade to middle school, and just talking about the need for entering and exit criteria based on different program models that we offer. Then another one that we had talked about and came up as a theme was just the need to continue to grow our professional development opportunities within the district. And so this was identified by both special education teachers, related service providers, paraprofessionals, and general education, that everybody could benefit from that as well. So that was day one. Day two, we all came back together first thing in the morning on Saturday, and we started at 9 and continued on with our SWOT analysis, diving into the O and the T part of that process, and then we actually began really deep, like digging deep into what did we want to prioritize our needs as. So in this area, when we look at opportunities, we began analyzing what we could consider to expand. And this was in terms of our partnerships in the community, which could be providing staff members and special education teachers the opportunity to observe other school district programs or even special education cooperatives in the neighboring districts, to be able to see what their continuum of services look like, and being able to see it in action and to observe it for themselves and ask questions. These observations can provide us with ideas on how to best approach our work and inform our practice. Some threats that I think that the committee recognized was just that special education does have a lot of legal pieces that go along with it, and that's something that making sure that parents understand all of those aspects of what the legal process is that goes in with the special education process, and just making sure that teachers also have the confidence when they're approaching this work as well. All right, this was very fun and exciting, but this was when everyone got to put their ideas on paper and be able to think as many goals as they possibly could. So each member of the committee was able to write down any and all potential goals that they believe should be considered for the district, taking into consideration all of those specific unique strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in our work moving forward. And each individual got to write out the goals they hope to see. And as little table groups, we were able to read what our goals were, look for patterns, identify those patterns and commonalities, and then group by theme. So this work just innately leads itself to seeing what our priorities are and figuring out what we need to do next. So as we sat in our table groups, we then started collaborating in the larger group of what is it that we want to do moving forward? What are these goals that we're identifying? And there were an emergence of 5 overarching themes in this initial one. So that part of the process, I guess, just to let you know, this one takes a bulk of the time. This is when everyone is thinking about their big dreams, their asks, their wishes, keeping in mind all of that SWOT analysis that we had just conducted, and figuring out now, what do we do? How do we group these things? How do we move forward? So in between this time and our next meeting, one of the things that we did is we brought back the goals to a couple different places. We talked about it here in District 64, about what these initial 5 overarching themes were, but we also were able to draw this back and present this to our PT3 committee, which is our parents and teachers talking together. Wait, I left out a T. Parents, teachers. No, talking together. I got them all. Okay. So they were all able to review the goals together as a group, and our PT3 group is especially just not knowing what it has been in the past. I think it's amazing. It's a great group of people, and so they were wonderful in just unpacking all of the work that the Student Services Action Plan Committee had looked at. And early in the year, just to brag about them a little bit more, they had also just unpacked the audit as well to think about how do these things intersect with one another too. So once we got back together in January, we had some pieces of the process. There were, other groups had looked at it. In that time, Dr. Olson and I were also able to talk to students and get that student voice part of the process, which I'll speak to in a little bit. But everybody was just ready to come back together, and that excitement was not lost from our time in October, from when we met again in January. This would be, and I'll let Karen describe it and sell it, but this was the most fun committee you could possibly be on in all of District 64. So one of the things that I was able to do when we re-met in January was to just give an update of what those student interviews look like. So Dr. Olson and I had been able to go to Lincoln and to Emerson and meet with small groups of students that were receiving special education services, with the help of Colin and Tony, who are our student services coordinators and the principals of the school, so Mr. Swed and Dr. Olimo. we had a group of students pulled together and we got to talk to them about their experiences. This was amazing. I can't stress it enough, but it was so, I mean, this is just what makes me smile because the students were incredibly thoughtful in their answers. And you're thinking, like, okay, middle school students, like, what are they going to say? You never quite know. But they just had the most incredible insight. And what we talked about these 5 different areas, which was we talked about their student learning, we talked about just the support that they receive from the staff members, their peer relationships, their involvement in the IEP process, and then those educational tools that they use in their work to grow and just continue to meet their goals. In these 5 areas, the students were great at just explaining what it meant for them. And then I was able to report that back out to the committee when we met as a team. But I'm very grateful for all the kiddos that participated. This was it. This is the reason why we do the work. And I just love that they got to have their voice included in the process. So with all of those pieces in mind, then our committee continued to flush out what is it that we need to do. So we had come up with some overlap in one of the initial 5 themes, and we got it down to 4 because we were figuring, okay, these are the big themes, the overarching factors, these goals that we want to all tie together our future work. And these categories are, we wanted to clarify and expand the continuum of services. We wanted to seek to improve consistency and methods for greater student growth. We want to continue expanding learning opportunities for our staff and for our families. And we also want to foster a culture of trust through relationships. So with those 4 overarching themes, we had to come up with, okay, what are these individual pieces that we want to move forward on? So this has to do with expanding our philosophy and structures between our programs, our roles, our criteria, everything in just defining what does our continuum of services look like. We wanted to examine and continue refining our co-teaching philosophy and our practices. We want to make sure we're exploring our strategies for maximizing inclusion, complete a comprehensive review of our early childhood program, and also explore models of instructional programs just across the district. So everyone was, again, this was the one. This was where there was the bulk of all the goals that we had identified. They fell into this category. So initially, we had not prioritized all of these 4 goals, but this is the one that definitely had the most what the committee had identified is this is our priority and this is where we should turn to first. The next area, in seeking to improve our consistency and methods for greater student growth, we identified that we wanted to make sure that across all schools, we can calculate our services in minutes in the way that is consistent for everybody. We also identified that we wanted to maximize our expansive resources. This is our tools, things that exist like our curricular resources, and even like our people resources. How do we make sure that we're getting the most out of everything? We also looked at establishing a process for reviewing grade level proficiency data and making sure we're using that data. And that was another thing that if you think back to the audit from 2022, that was a process of data review was also included in that. So there's that continued carryover between all of these things. And then also to just make sure that we're developing a consistent process for transitions between settings and programs. The next thing that we had, our 4th theme, our 4th goal area, is to expand learning opportunities for staff and community. And this is, again, going back to what is it that the staff needs to be successful. This is going to be professional development. It's going to make sure that we're providing differentiated training for everybody, and especially when we get new people on board and we're welcoming to them and introducing them to District 64, that we're providing them with the mentorship and the training that they need to be able to hit the ground running and be successful for our students. And then the last one is making sure that we fostered a culture of trust through relationships. So this is one, again, if you think back to that audit, number 9, enhancing the partnership with parents of special needs students in District 64. This is kind of where we saw that intersection as well. We want to make sure that we can continue to expand our family communication and involvement and do everything that we can to just increase inclusion awareness among students, staff, and families. And all of those things, again, that just fit in these big four overarching goals that we're really excited to share with you today. So now I'm going to actually turn it over to Karen Hess, who is going to do a wonderful job of just being able to share her perspective of exactly what we did.
Hi, good evening. So Alicia did say we were kind of real excited about this, and I will tell you, I came home after Saturday. We were at the meeting all night Friday. I came home Saturday. I hadn't seen my husband all week, and that night he said, "Hey, how was your day?" I'm like, "It was great," and he was like, "Were you at work?" I'm like, "Yes," and it was a Saturday, and I was at work. Like, it was very exciting. So Alicia had asked me to think about really what was the most exciting part about participating in this committee. And I will tell you that I am in my 21st year here in the district. I'm very young looking, I know you wouldn't guess. But in my 21 years in the district, there has been a lot of turnover. And this to me is a place that I call my second home. I've dedicated my career. I'm super passionate about my students, my families. I love it. And when I start to see the foundation crack or the wall, like at Lincoln, springing a leak, it makes me a little nervous. It makes me nervous. And so, what was really exciting about this was when Dr. Olson said, we're going to come together and we're going to have a plan. And we're going to have a plan that no matter what happens with leadership, because I think in my 21 years, Alicia is maybe my number 7 director, that's kind of a lot. And it leaves those of us that are here and have been here wondering, like, oh my goodness, is the wall gonna fall? Is the foundation gonna split? Because there's a new vision when we have a new leader that comes in. And so special ed has that law piece that makes those of us that live in the world of special ed a little nervous sometimes because we love our kids, we love our job. But you have that, idea that if you're doing it wrong, oh no, you're really getting in trouble. And so that makes it hard to do your job. And it makes it really hard to do your job when there's somebody new that keeps coming in and giving us a new vision. So when we were told that there's going to be a plan that regardless of what happens with leadership, it's going to be worked on. It's going to be our roadmap to try to fix some of the cracks in our foundation. So it was really cool. And I think one of the things I tell people all the time is I love the idea of my job. I absolutely love it. But my actual job some days really just wears me down. It does. And it's because sometimes you don't know which way you're going. You try to do something right here, but then it's wrong in the other way. So it was really exciting for us as a group to come together and know, once again, there's going to be a roadmap. And we know that it's going to take a long time to get there. We didn't get here overnight. And so we know it's going to take some years to kind of climb out of some of the hole that we've kind of dug ourselves into, I guess. And I think the thing that was really cool when Alicia asked me what I thought was probably the best part of it. I've never done a SWOT analysis. I thought that was really cool. It was very productive. It gave us direction. And one of the things that was super great about this committee, when Brett put up that word engage on the screen, I thought that was like our committee. I mean, we've all been to committees and sat and participated in things and made big grand plans, and we've got all this curriculum. Lori, no offense, it's just sitting on the shelf. We don't remember how to use it. We forgot the training. Good, she left. But like we all have these great ideas of things we want to be able to do, but we just get so overwhelmed and then something new comes up and we kind of lose focus. So one of the best parts about this was there was a variety of people. We had a lot of different perspectives. It wasn't just the special ed, it was community members, it was parents, it was gen ed teachers that were there, which I thought was so cool because as a special ed teacher, I love my special ed kids. And I think all teachers love their kids, but our gen ed teachers sometimes struggle with how do I help these kids? This is not my area. So the fact that there was some gen ed teachers that were like, yes, they're all of our kids was just so exciting. I mean, the level of excitement, it was palpable. I mean, we even on the second Saturday, this is a group of teachers, were like, dude, we'll come back again. I think almost everybody said, we will do this if this is what it's going to take to get us back to being great. And I think the process really allowed people to feel comfortable at being honest. You know, there are some things we should acknowledge things that have happened. We don't maybe necessarily agree with them, but we really have to know, what did we do that was really good so we can keep doing it? But what do we need to change? What are some of our tweaks that we really need to figure out? How do we fix this? And how do we get moving to get us back to where everybody feels so excited? So, like, the whole district can feel that energy in our room. So, I mean, it was just, I would have to say I will say, the best committee I have probably been on in my 21 years. You know, and I think maybe because I've been on a lot of other committees, and when Tom had talked about, like, PT3 in the beginning, it was quite uncomfortable. It was, we went through kind of a period of, like, a little bit, it was a little toxic, and I hate to use that word, but I think it's the reality. That's what a lot of our teachers have felt. And it's hard to do your job and feel excited about it when you have no idea where you're going. So it was great. It was great. That's all.
Thank you, Karen. I love that Karen is so authentic. This is like one of my favorite qualities about her, because I also think that authenticity is just so important, and it also gets us where we're going. So I appreciate that. So thank you. So, with that in mind, what are our next steps? We have the goals that we say, this is it. This is what we want to focus on. But what we need to do next is look at our measurements of goal success and achievements. We want to work for identifying, how do we know that we've achieved these things, and what is our timeline for doing so. It's really important that we set these measures for ourselves, because then it just helps us be held accountable. It provides that roadmap that Karen was explaining, and it keeps us on track, right? It just makes sure that we're still going down the pathway together, all aligned, and that's what we are excited to do in the coming months. So again, with all of this in mind, I just really, really want to show you guys how grateful I am to the entire committee, because the excitement, the energy, the expertise, everything in that room drove us forward and moved us along the way. And I am so excited to continue this work. I just love that we were able to come together and really, like, dig in. And it didn't matter. Like, we literally had a cross section of everybody from all the different schools, all different related service providers, teachers, experiences, whether they were veterans or they were new. Everybody got to be a part of this, and I think that just gives me confidence that when you have all of those different voices that are coming together, that we can authentically know exactly what it is that we want to address and then move forward from there. So again, just thank you to all the committee members. And of course, thank you guys for your support in this process. And please let me know if you or if you have questions for me or Karen. We know she'll be honest with her answers, so let us know.
First, thanks to Karen and Alicia for this presentation and for being on the committee. I do see some other committee members here if they want to stand up. I know one keeps walking in and out, but I see a couple right here. Don't be shy. Just don't still wait.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I echo what both of you said, that it was a good committee to be on. Thanks for letting me participate. I just wanted to mention one thing, that within the goal of seeking to improve consistency and methods for greater student growth, one thing was that first objective within that goal: design a framework for calculating minutes and services across all schools. I think that was the one that received the most points, I guess you would call them.
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
probably like 20 something. So when people wrote out all the note cards for what they wanted to see, I think that one was the one that was the main focus, which I don't know if anyone would necessarily expect that, but maybe you did.
Right. No, I would say that that one did tie back to, again, just in the audits continuum of services, they address that as well. And this is something that I think it's just because it's different from building to building. And it's not that it's intentional to be different. It's just that people sometimes take a different approach because that's what they know. But what I love is that because we had just a cross section of all the buildings, then we got to hear about, okay, well, how does it look at Carpenter? Okay, how does it look at Emerson? And then being able to know, we do have to get more on the same page for how we recommend.
Right. And then within that, I think it's not necessary. I'm not saying it's a drafting issue, but how we all were wordsmithing this. I think within that objective was also the access to services. So that's probably why also a lot of people thought that was. So when we say calculating minutes, behind that phrase, calculating minutes, I think it was just, getting the minutes also in the first place too, was within that objective too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a question before I get to my praises. Um, so you've been here a long time, Karen. That's and you mentioned several times in your discussion that it was awesome to have a roadmap. It was awesome to have this presentation so that regardless of what happens, with leadership in any level, that it's a seamless transition. The next director can come in and pick up where the other one left off, and everybody who's left behind, like you for 20, how many years?
21.
Right.
This is my 21st year.
You don't feel like you're starting over every time.
Right.
I have one question though. Is this really the first time that you've felt that we've had a roadmap that got you this excited? Because you were really, it was coming through. You were shining. Is this really the first time that in your 21 years that we've had something that exciting for you?
I'm kind of sad to say probably yes. And
Okay.
and I'm thinking like in the vein of like special ed and like the paperwork and the ideas of the legality of all of the things that we need to do, because sometimes you're not sure if you're doing it quite right. And so I think as special educators, we use our professional best judgment. I went to school, I know how to provide instruction to my students.
Then
But every district kind of has a different idea of what, like Carol was talking about, those services exactly look like. So how I provide instruction to students in maybe a life skill program is going to be different than what maybe you're allowed to provide in a resource program. So knowing like how that all flows together, we don't really have that.
well,
We kind of just use our best judgment.
seeing how excited you were and seeing Alicia smile while you were saying it, and knowing how important special ed is to a lot of the community and this district, the administrators, and also knowing how important it was and it is to Dr. Olson. Uh, I'm going to say a very, very large thank you to Alicia and Dr. Olson for making sure that this happened. I'm sure the SPED community and the Gen Ed community are thankful to know that there is a roadmap that addresses some of the issues of the district and that we can start chipping away at them and get to be the best special ed program as opposed to just, in the middle or just barely above or below, whatever people think. So I want to give you guys all a special thank you, Dr. Olson, Alicia, and Karen, and everybody else involved. And Dr. Lopez. Well, we thank her all the time.
All right. How about other questions, comments?
I'd like to echo the thanks as well. I really appreciate the presentation. Could you help me, understand how helpful was the audit in the context of you pulling this action plan together? That would be question number one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and Karen can wear two hats here as well, because Karen also participates on PT3. But I think that in reading the audit very thoroughly over the course of my time here already, and having PT3 unpack the entire audit over the course of the last 6 months together, what was great is that you just see the common threads between what the committee identified and what was reflected there. There's so much overlap, and I think that just seeing that, yes, this is consistent, and now we're going to address it because we're hearing it from all sides. That just, again, I think it's helpful because it gives us just another tool. It was another tool in our toolbox, and it was just confirmation that yep, this is what we need to be doing.
Was there anything in the audit that didn't come out of the committee that surprised you, or something that with upon reflection?
No, I wouldn't say that there was anything that was a surprise in the audit. I think the biggest themes were, or what we saw as the committee saw as the most important. It was, those were all universal. There were a couple that were just less of a driving force. But overall, like all of the recommendations in some way, shape, or form were hit up by things that the committee had looked at.
Right, except for MTSS, we agreed that we're keeping that separate because Dr.
Yes.
Lopez is working on that separately. So that's one thing from the audit that we didn't touch upon in this plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, thanks, Carol. And Alicia, I think for me, just I want to see it done. And so this is great. We got a plan.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this, but how do we push it through? How do we get this? Because I think you have a timeline in there. I saw 2023 to 2026. Now, it's not. I'm assuming that this is not like all going to build up and then all of a sudden turn on at 2026. This is a gradual evolution, and things will. Some of these objectives, these very detailed action items that you have, will kind of be turned on over time. So, I think at least personally, I'm hoping the rest of the board as well want to see you succeed in this, and we want to. I'd love to hear, periodically how you progressing against these and which ones have been, maybe like a traffic light kind of thing. Are you on track? What's the time frame for this to be done? And hopefully you'll start ticking these things off, and they'll drop off the list here over the next 3 years. And then for me as a board member, I want to say, how can we help you make sure that if there is something that does lag, or if there's is a cost to something, that we can start thinking ahead to helping you achieve that through the additional spend, or resources that you may need. So I really appreciate this. Is great, love it. But what the next thing I'd like to see is kind of like that kind of timeline against each of these items, and potentially cost or any additional things you want from the board.
Yes, and that you are summarizing the next steps perfectly. Like that is exactly where we need to take it next. We have to just come together as our strategy of like, okay, we've got these goals in place. Now what is our next step is figuring out what are the individual like strategies that we need to apply, what is the timeline for each of those goals, and that is something that we want to do. That's where we're going. So
Right, guys. Alicia and her team were, because that was discussed when Karen said like, oh, people wanted to come back. Well, Alicia's going to come up with the dates and all of that. So the committee isn't meeting again. She's just going to do that and present that later when she has those dates.
So that'll be sometime in the summer. We'll see that.
We're not locking her into anything.
Well, I think the tricky thing that we want to take into consideration is just knowing that we want this plan to succeed. We want everyone to be successful, and trying to navigate the process. We know that we're going to be welcoming a new superintendent at some point. And with that, we just want to make sure that they can have a voice in the process and understand and help pave that way forward, as well as a new assistant director as well. So with those two starts at the same time, we just want to make sure that they can be involved in setting those timelines, and looking at those next steps as well, just to be respectful and inclusive of them in the process. I know I just said something about Angela Phillips, and I'm very grateful for her, but we're also excited because she's got a new job that she's going to for next year. And so that's when I made reference to that. Just thank you, special Angela, for being here and supporting us.
And then we're also going to create a dashboard just like we're doing for the strategic plan, so you can track it as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I just had written dashboard like strategic plan. So thank you. Okay. No, I think that's great. So I have a question and a comment. And so I really like the themes of consistency in the framework. You can definitely see that throughout the plan. And so I thought that was really effective. And I guess here's the question. One of the things that I heard from you, the community partnerships, which I think partnerships are, can lead to great things. Do other districts often do that? Like observe other, schools and programs? Like, is that a common occurrence in the, students with special needs world?
Yes, well, and I think what makes District 64 a little bit unique in this situation is that we do not belong to a co-op, and that looks a little bit different for other districts. So other districts may buy into a co-op where they get other services that are delivered through that avenue. And so because we don't belong to one, we do everything here, which is great because all of our kiddos are right here, but just introduces some different unique circumstances for us. So do other places do that? Yes, I think it's a little bit easier to do it, but we can absolutely put this in the fold of something that we want to do, and be able, because we have partnerships with other co-ops and other school districts, we can absolutely do that without any problems moving forward, and being able to secure observations, talk to different people, have people come in if we need to, and help help, just show how they've done it successfully.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. No, that's great. And then, the other thing, and this just might mean, um, and, Tom Fisher mentioned it earlier when he spoke in public comment. I think since I've been on the board, I've heard about the continuum of services. So it seems like I continue to hear that. And so, can we I know there's a plan, and I'm hearing that very clearly. So, is that what distinguishes? Because I've heard this, the 4 years I've been on the board, the continuum services, and how is this different?
Well, so one of the things that we want to address in that first goal of just looking at our continuum to see, is what we're doing making sense the way that we're offering it currently? Do we need to make any tweaks? Do we need to change the way that we approach our continuum here in District 64? And that's something that I think we really want to do. Um, to walk you through just our continuum, like I'm happy to talk to you about it. I also want to be respectful because I think I can be long winded in my answers. But I'll talk you through what we do have and possibly what it could look like.
No, and that's I just wanted to, just because we've heard this, and so just wanted to clarify that a bit. No, thank you, I appreciate it. Um, and I just think both of you need a little more enthusiasm for this. I mean, I'm not getting enough of that. So, thank you.
I just have a comment and then a question. I thought you guys did such a phenomenal job, and I'm so thankful that you put it together and took the time to do this research and meet. One of the things I keep hearing, not keep, I've heard it at least a handful of times, is that they don't really want board members on committees because they might micromanage or not feel like they could talk freely. How was it having a board member on there?
Well,
Feel
luckily,
micromanaged?
none of those things were that I did not feel at all. Carol, we loved having you. Loved having you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You had the right board member. You might have not been so enthusiastic if I was there.
I'm still pretty enthusiastic.
I had two hats though too, as a parent and a board member too. So it wasn't,
Right.
Just as a board member.
Yeah, and then I just want to share. I love the perspective that you guys had, like parents and teachers and students, and like I just love the entire collaboration. And to have 30 people and get this done is even more amazing. Like I think, not obviously don't want to have 100 because it could go out of whack, but I think 30 is a good amount, and I'm so happy and proud that our district was able to put parents, teachers, students, administrators together, and have this amazing plan. And like I'll echo what Gareth said. If you need whatever you need from us or from the board, feel free to come this way and let's get this done for our sped kids and our classrooms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thanks for your leadership. Thanks to the committee members. All right, this is exciting. Okay. Yep. Okay, sounds good. All right, we are gonna just pivot a little bit, and we're gonna move to A7. Okay, Joel, he's going to get back to the meeting in a few minutes. All right, so A7. So let's talk about the first reading of the policies from Press 110 and our update from the Policy Committee.
Gareth or Phyllis?
I think Phyllis is going to go.
I'm just going to be brief because we have still a lot to cover here. But on March 3rd, Carol, Gareth, and myself did meet with Dr. Olson. I thought we had a productive meeting. We went through Press 110, which was from October of 2022, and the policies in the packet. So policy 660 we're holding off on until we hear from our attorneys. We have some questions on that. There's policy 5:250. There was a question on whether we could change it or not. But I think the committee meeting policy was, I mean, we went through all of them. It took us about an hour and a half or two. We are going to go back and meet on 660 just because it was longer, and included some curriculum, particularly the sex ed curriculum. So we're holding off on that. And that's my report on that. What I did want to say quickly though is, like Gareth said at the beginning, for some of these candidates who have, or where'd you say you saw that at the meeting? There are policies and procedures, and so we can't really just talk about the transgender issue because we're waiting for state law, and so we're following the law. Where it's not up to us as a board to make that distinction or just create a policy against it. We're following the advice of our attorneys, and the same thing with the book banning or putting books, the proper books. It's not banning; it's age appropriate books on the shelf. So that's in the policy also. So, I mean, we talked about it. I thought we had a good conversation, and we do not have another meeting scheduled at this time, but we will work with Eric and Natasha to schedule one and let the public know when it happens. That's all I got.
All right. How about further comments? Carol, I know you were there
A
as
couple
well.
of the other policies that we're still following up with legal counsel about, those also had to do with making sure we're, um, following all of the various union contracts too.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so this is the first reading. It'll come back to the board next meeting for the second reading. And so, thank you, Policy Committee. Okay. Let's go to the consent agenda. All right, let's move to the consent agenda. So does anyone need anything pulled off of there? I guess we're okay there. All right. All right. So the consent agenda, can we vote on that as a whole? If we look at that?
No, go ahead.
Carol?
I'm fine with that. I was just going to make the motion if you're ready.
Oh, yeah. So do we need anything
fine.
pulled off of there?
So no, Dimitri should abstain from this vote since he was not around for
Correct.
any of it.
Yes.
So
And the same thing for yep. No, that's great.
I move that the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 64, Park Ridge-Niles, Illinois, approve the consent agenda for March 16, 2023, which includes bills, payroll, and benefits, approval of financial update for the period ending January 31st, 2023, approval of semi-annual review of closed minutes, and destruction of audio closed recordings, none.
Second.
All right, Carol had the motion, Gareth had the second. How about further discussion from the board on anything in the consent agenda? Okay, let's take a roll call vote.
Pearl?
Yes.
Sotos?
yes,
Celis?
Yes.
Lubinsky, yes. Kennedy?
Yes.
Tuzios. Motion carries.
Okay. Okay, so that's that. Let's look at the next item, which is the approval of minutes. All right. How about any changes from the board? Anything we need to attend to there?
Dimitri, same thing, just vote present.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, let's take the motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 64, Park Ridge-Niles, Illinois, approve the minutes of the closed meeting on March 6, 2023, and the regular meeting on March 6, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Gareth had the motion, Tom had the second. Further discussion from the board? Okay, let's do the roll call.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Celis?
Yes.
Sotos?
Yes.
Pearl?
Yes.
Lubinsky, yes. Tuzios.
Present.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Why don't can we take about a 5-minute break? All right, let's take about a 5-minute break.
A12? Can we do A12 before that or no?
I was going to ask the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yep, we can do A12. Yep, there you go. All right, so let's look at A12. Eric, what do you have in A12?
So once again, just drawing your attention to the board policy committee meeting that we talked about already. And then our next meeting is on April 20th. Those are the two pieces.
And I just want to, FOIA request is on here, and that's our just typical on the agenda. And I just wanted to, the board received information on FOIAs that we've had in the last, I think, 13 years. And so I just found it interesting that 2022, we had the highest number of FOIA requests was 64. And I think the lowest number was 12. So I know that this is definitely for transparency, which I value that, but there's also a financial aspect to FOIAs with attorney's fees and just staff fees. So I just thought that was there's a lot of time, involved in that many FOIAs. Anything else on that? Okay. All right, now why don't we take 5 minutes? Let's take a 5 minute break. Okay. So let's come together maybe at 9:05. So that's about 8 minutes. Okay.
Over a quick, I know we talked about this last board meeting, which was about a week and a half ago, but I'll go over some of the main points again, which is we are using for our staffing enrollment for the 23-24 school year, we are using the rollover method as mentioned before. Because of the impact of the pandemic and the demographer's report no longer being accurate. So when we look at those numbers, we're projecting a decrease of 129 students from 4,530 down to 4,401 students. That's when you look at the report, all of our buildings but Carpenter are projected to go down by some degree. And as we said before, what we're seeing because of the pandemic is the smaller groups moving in through our grade levels and the larger groups are moving out. So we're seeing that decrease in enrollment that was not foreseen prior to the pandemic. Whenever we decrease students, typically there is an impact on our classrooms, which we are anticipating at the moment, which would be down 3 sections, 2 at Franklin and 1 at Roosevelt. Additionally, the potential for an additional loss of an FTE in our student services as we lose students, that is impacted also. So total impact of down 4 staff. But due to enrollments and retirements that we have currently, we do not anticipate or having to reduce any of our full-time staff members who are currently employed, so will not be riffing anybody at this time. There may be an impact on our part-time staff, obviously, as we move forward in staffing. Additionally, what we will see is we will monitor our bubbles. Our bubble sections are the classes that are within 3 of our class size maximums and minimums. It's early, so our projections and what I talk about now could change dramatically as the course of the spring and we roll into summer. But currently we have the potential for 5 classes to go down, first and second grade at Carpenter and Franklin both, and the 5th grade at Field. Historically, we find that the decreases tend to not come that often because typically families are in here, tend to stay for the most part, but we do monitor them. And if we were to decrease a section, we would reassign the teacher to an open spot within the district for which they are qualified. We are also monitoring 3 bubble sections that could increase. There's a 4th and 5th grade at Franklin as well as a 2nd grade at Roosevelt. Anytime that we reach the point where we would look to add a section or a teacher, we verify that all the students at that grade level are coming back for sure. We verify enrollment so that we are secure in the fact that it would be a needed position before we would add that position. Again, I would just say, obviously, it is very early in the enrollment process. That's where we are at the moment. But, as things go on, we would update the board as appropriate based on what we see throughout the spring and through the summer. Any questions on the rollover and what we're looking at in the moment?
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I have just a couple quick questions.
Absolutely.
First question would be, are we planning, so we're using the rollover method for this year. Are we planning on going back to?
Yeah, I think what we talked about just briefly at the last board meeting, I know we've discussed, is as we see the potential of things pretty much, I guess, evening out, we would look to speak to the board about, having another study done that would be more accurate in projecting what the impact of the pandemic has been and what would be our enrollment projections for the foreseeable future. I think we want to make sure that we're seeing, that kind of leveling out or maybe a slight increase to the point where we went back to have a study done that would actually be useful and will reflect what's going on. But yes, we are very much monitoring that and would look to do that.
And just to reiterate, even though the number seems slightly large, 129, based on where those loss of students is why we're not seeing a huge change in the amount of classrooms, the amount of necessary homerooms, so on and so forth. Um, but throughout all this, there is a small possibility that we might see that negative 129 be a little less than negative 129 with the registration of new kindergarten, first graders, so on. Regardless of all that, you are still recommending that we add one SLC classroom and that we retain the 4.5 math positions that we had initially, I believe, for support. So the support positions, and I just want to thank you for asking us to keep those.
No,
I
thank
think
you.
it's really important,
Yeah,
especially on the math side.
I was going to just review those two, but thank you, Tom.
All right.
Gareth, did you?
Yeah, I got a few questions. Are there any patterns in the children that are leaving? Is there more COC or special ed or anything like that you've seen?
No, we haven't seen a pattern. Again, the only pattern that I would be able to tell you is it seems to be consistent across the district. Obviously, you'll see some variations in some of the building numbers, but again, I think the two patterns that we're seeing is outside of Carpenter, every building is tending to be down, which we do believe is very much reflective of the pandemic and the impact it had on us. And I would say the pattern is that there is no pattern in the sense that, to your point, we don't see it being among a specific group or a specific, area or CFC or special ed or anything along those lines.
Okay. And then in terms of the resources, I don't think I saw COC mentioned here. There's no changes in COC.
Not at the
staffing?
moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing on the bubble there or anything like that. Okay. And the last thing, in terms of the demographer and having a study done, do you know what other school districts are doing right now with that? Are they also weighed in? And we're not going
Yeah,
to be
I
first
can
out of
tell
the gate
you-
on this, right? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I know, for example, 62, our neighbor just next door in Des Plaines, reached out just about a month and a half ago and wanted to know who we had used for the demographer study, when we had it done previously. They are contemplating the same thing that Tom brought up, which is they're looking at the part of now as they come out of the pandemic, wanting to do a new study also that is more reflective. So I think we're right in the same situation as our neighbors of looking at the fact of, okay, the models and the studies that many of the districts used in the past are no longer accurate. And I think we're all looking for the fact, is this the right time to do the next study?
yeah, to me, I'm wondering how quickly the things will settle down because the housing market and that kind of brings people in, and people obviously wanting to leave. There's immigration out of the state to down south. There's just a lot of things going on right now. The upheaval still seems to be continuing, and obviously people move here as a destination district. Some take a while to have their children, so that there could be like just a lag of several years here, and I wouldn't want to do it too soon.
I think one of the things that Adam and I may do at some point is reach out to the demographers to get some impact of when they might recommend. Because to your point, one of the things that has impacted, obviously, housing market has been interest rates and the change that has happened. The market that was moving pretty quickly has slowed down to some degree. And I think, and even touching base with like 62 and saying, okay, if you're starting this process, what are you hearing? Because you're right, I don't want to go spend the district's money on a study that is not productive and really doesn't do anything for us. Yeah, we want to make
Lacks
sure that it's
accuracy.
at the right time.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, John.
Yep. But to Tom's point, I appreciate the segue. We are looking to retain our 4.5 math interventionists at the elementary buildings. These are teachers whose primary focus is to intervene for students who are struggling in math in first grade through fifth. Their goal is to support kids to get them the intensive support so that they do not fall behind and that they're able to stay at grade appropriate levels throughout their academic career. I know Dr. Lopez and her team works really hard to support the kids, and I think they do a really nice job. We view this as a need, just going forward, that this is good for students, that this is something that we value. We have this in reading currently, and we'd like to continue that in math. And Gareth, I know you had asked for, provided the breakdown there of the 4.5. So if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer what you might
I
have.
appreciate the breakdown. Thank you.
And we are also looking to add an additional SLC, structured learning classroom at Washington. Again, this classroom serves some of our neediest students. Historically, this was started and we were about 5 students, and it was kindergarten through grades 3. We're now up to grade 5, and next year we'll be up expanding from kindergarten into the middle school level, and we'll be well over 10 students. So we're looking for the additional classrooms so that we can split students based on age appropriate levels, having kids who are clustered by age and ability level closer together. And that should provide the ability for the teachers to really differentiate and provide the appropriate support versus having them all in one class and trying to meet the different needs of all of those students. So we would be asking for, again, the continuation, or I'm sorry, the additional SLC and the continuation of the 4.5 math intervention teachers. As we pointed out, because we're going down potentially 4 teachers, the math intervention this past year has been primarily funded through grants and ESSER. So while it is new money, we would offset that with the decreases potentially. So we would look at a total increase right now of 1.5 staff members, the SLC, and then new money of the 0.5. That wouldn't be covered with the offset of the reduction in staff. So we would anticipate that being new salary in the approximate neighborhood of about 142,000 to the district. And I'm sorry, salary and benefits.
And Joel, so we have the 4.5 math interventionist that is on there, and then a reading interventionist. Do we have 4.5 as well?
I don't know. To Lori, is it 4.5? Is it the equivalent, or they're pretty close there too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just curious on that. And how do we, I mean, obviously, if there's more student need, do we need to go to, 5 intervention, or what, if there's a need, I think we need to fill that need.
So to your point, Denise, I think that the buildings have been pretty happy with the support they've seen, and obviously our building administrators are behind this. They would very much like to keep the math interventionists. But, as we reflect upon the data as we get towards the third trimester and the end of the year, I think if Dr. Lopez and I are seeing with our building administrators that the data is showing us that we might need to increase it, we would come back and ask. But at this point, we just would like to maintain the status quo.
Okay. Why don't we take the action item and then see if there's further discussion?
I move that the Board of Education Community Consolidated School District 64, Park Ridge-Niles, Illinois, approve the recommended 2023-24 staffing plan presented and discussed at the March 6th, 2023 regular Board of Education meeting.
Second.
Phyllis had the motion and Gareth had the second. Further discussion from the board?
Not discussion, but just a point out that the 4.5 math interventionists up until now were paid for by grants and ESSER funds. Moving forward, they're going to be paid for by us. However, if grants or funds do become available, you make it clear here that you will access those so that you can offset some of the costs. So
Absolutely.
Either way, it's a win-win.
Right. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just change March 6th to March 16 in the motion, and then that's fine.
So it's typo, but yes.
Yeah,
16.
that's all.
Okay. Lubinsky's yes. Sellis?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Sotos? Yes. Pearl?
Yes.
Tuzios?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And I think it was March 6th because that was initially when it was talked about. So I don't think it
and
was.
today. Oh, it's fine either way.
I don't know, but
right.
I think that was initially presented on March 6th.
No, good catch. I should have caught that. I apologize.
No, but that we've talked about it on both days. So, and they're only 10 days apart. Who's counting? Okay. All right. Let's move on. All right. So next, we have Joel. You're on for the personnel report, and this is a long one.
Yes. So every year at this time of year, which ties directly into our staffing enrollment report, we do several things at this board meeting. And it's why we do it in the March board meeting is because of days that we have to notify staff per the school code, which is 75 days before the end of the school year for our certified staff. And so at this point, we would be bringing motions to the Board of Education. One of the motions is to our first year ESPs. So it's at this point, we every year release our first year teaching assistants. That doesn't mean we may not hire these individuals back. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. But it's based on this particular moment as we're trying to figure out the staffing. We don't know what our specific needs for our teaching assistants will be. Oftentimes, with our special ed students, who many of these teaching assistants support, those final IEP meetings and needs are really set in the third trimester. So we make sure that we know exactly what our needs are, and then we look and determine what we would need for next year. And if we need some of those individuals back, then we would look to call them back. But we always look to our current teaching assistants who are doing a good job as our first go-to people. One of the other motions is the honorable dismissal of part-time certified staff members. And so pretty much following the same thing we just talked about, every year, if we do not release our part-time staff, we have to guarantee the same FTE for the upcoming school year. The part-time staff in particular is always reliant upon what the enrollment is. So at this point in the year, we don't know what those percentages will be. And to give you an example, sometimes we will have a part-time PE at the elementary building that'll be a 0.5 something, it'll be a 0.3, the next year could be a 0.4. That number moves based on obviously what is going on. And as we've seen over the last couple of years, as enrollment has not been as predictable, those numbers have changed more. So we will honorably dismiss those individuals also. And as we finalize what our needs are, then again, the same thing is if people are doing well and they're wanting to come back, we would hire those people back once we have the exact FTE and need identified. We also do that with all of our part-time classified staff. So our nurses and anything else where it is part-time and we're still determining the exact numbers, they're follow the same pattern. We will release them, and then once we've determined the exact needs, we hire back. And then finally, we do have the dismissal for reasons other than enrollment that has to do with 2 staff members. Unfortunately, there's always a time when we have non-tenured staff. We have standards of which we set for the district, and if we believe that certain individuals maybe are not going to be the best long-term fit for the district, it's the unfortunate time where we need to release those individuals. So there are 4 different resolutions that before the Board of Education tonight.
So just for clarification, only because my someone was reading this and they're like, why are only a segment of the teachers honorably discharged and the rest are just discharged? So just if you can just clarify for the community that they're all honorably discharged. It's just that the first section of dismissal of teachers in the 1308, because they are full-time and they're the ones that affect, if we don't honorably discharge them, then we would have to maintain. If you could just share the difference so that people don't think that there's a...
With the certified staff, in particular the certified part-time staff, why it says honorably dismiss is because this is specific to the fact of enrollment. And so they have done nothing. This is all based on enrollment and needs. So the honorable in that is to let them know that it is not based on performance, that it is based on enrollment, and obviously their positions, because they're part-time, are impacted by the enrollment, and that's why it says honorably dismissal. But honorable dismissal.
But the second and third year probationary teachers, they're also honorably being dismissed. No. But that doesn't mean, just because the word honorably is not there, it doesn't mean that they're being dismissed because they did something wrong.
Typically, the dismissal of first and second year, third year teachers for reasons other than reduction in force implies that the district has made a decision not to move forward with those individuals. It could be that they're not the right fit for the district. It could be that we don't see them growing long-term into somebody that we would want. It doesn't necessarily need to be as a reflection upon that they're doing anything wrong, as much as oftentimes it is the fact that it may just not be the right place for them or the right fit for them moving forward.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any further questions, or are we ready for the motion? Go ahead, Gareth.
I move that the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 64 Park Ridge-Niles, Illinois approve the personnel report dated March 16th, 2023, including Resolution 1308, Honorable Dismissal of Teachers, Resolution 1309, Dismissal of first, second, and third year probationary teachers for reasons other than reduction in force, Resolution 1310, dismissal of probationary educational support personnel employees. Resolution 1311, non-reemployment of part-time educational support personnel employees, noting that the personnel report is based on the recommendation of the superintendent and not on the board's direct knowledge regarding any of the specific individuals selected for employment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so Gareth had the motion, Phyllis had the second. Any further discussion? All right, let's take a vote.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Sotos, Linsky, yes. Celis,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Tuzios,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Joel. Okay. All right, so we jumped around a little bit on our agenda. We are now moving to A11, which is the superintendent search update. And we have Mark from the executive search firm, BWP, is here. And so let us get started. You're on, Mark.
Is that good or not? Think good. I can project. I have a radio voice. Thank you, Carol. So, good to be here. Glenn, this is his first night of teaching at Concordia University, so he could not make it. And Leangela, I was with him all day today. We were doing some screening, so we're tired of seeing each other. So you got just me for tonight. So Joel had sent me a little bit of an outline of things that we'll talk about. One of them, specifically the hardest thing is getting dates. I said this, I think the last time we were here, it's very difficult to get 7 busy people free to do these interviews. So we've got to start locking this in. So we'll talk about interview dates, a little bit of an update on the candidate pool, and then Joe provided you with some salary parameters. You don't have to set a salary. We just want to be able to have a range so when candidates talk to us about that, we can say, hey, you're way beyond what we're able to talk to you about or afford, and we don't want to waste their time. So that piece that shouldn't take very long, and then a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do in the workshop, and that will be in conjunction with your interviews. So how would you like to start with talking about the interview dates and the date? We had suggested a date for doing the workshop, and we did that. We knew all of our availability was there, but we did not know your availability. And that was the April 11th date. It was a Tuesday night. And so we're not sure if that's doable or not. That would be about an hour and a half to 2 hours of a session where we'll review the candidates that we're presenting. We'll review the finished profile. That's a more detailed representation than the survey. This will be information from the communications that we received on the community engagement day, the day we were here, pulling all these 3 items together. And that's a pretty extensive report. So it takes us about 20 minutes or so, depends on how many questions, maybe a little longer. Then again, sharing with you the candidates, the paperwork for each candidate, then talking about the questions. Now, some boards like to have sample questions ahead of time so you can look them over and you come prepared for that workshop with the questions you like to ask. So we provide you with sample questions. And not to say that you can have your own questions and put them in there, but sometimes the sample questions spark your interest. So we're comfortable sending them ahead of time if people would guarantee the confidentiality of those. Excuse me, we don't want those floating around for a lot of reasons. So we could save a little bit of time on that end, and people would come ready with their 3 or 4 questions. So that's good. And then give you the opportunity, to talk protocol questions, who's going to do what role. Typically the board president has a major role at this stage, and the meeting and greeting, you'll use the services, I assume, from human resources, which would be Joel. I don't want to give anybody any jobs. That's the board's responsibility. But so that's what takes place during that.
an hour and a half to 2 hour workshop. So very productive, and you get a chance to ask about the candidates that we're going to present to you. The good part is we have candidates, and there's strong interest. Update on the candidate pool right now. We had over
You know what,
20.
Mark, do we want to just stop? Let's just make sure. Is April 11th good for everyone? Was that date?
I'm good with April 11th.
Yeah, it's good for me. You don't have anything late the week before though to do that
Before,
earlier?
isn't that the week before spring break?
No, it's the week after. There's a week.
The election week.
Yeah, like the Thursday, the 6th.
That Thursdays are very difficult for our group, mainly because of Glenn's
Glenn's in
responsibility.
class.
Oh, okay, okay.
We could potentially do it Wednesday. I didn't ask him for that date, but we knew we cleared off the 11th. But if you're having difficulty, we'll come back and circle around.
11th is fine. I'm fine with the 11th. I'm fine with the 11th.
Dimitri, are you good on the
5th.
Yeah, the 11th.
11th, Carol?
I could do 4th and 5th as well.
Yeah, 4, 5, 11 for me. And
Fine for me too.
I'm not good on the 4th.
That might be tight coming back from spring break, preparing all this information.
oh yeah, we talked about the 4th in February, and didn't we say the 4th was bad?
Is there a reason to do it on the 5th other than the 11th?
I mean, if
We
we're
have to
good
see
on
what
the
day of the
11th,
week. Oh, the 5th is a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
if your team's on the 11th, then we can all do the 11th. I'm not sure.
I'm fine with that too.
I can do it with the 11th.
Okay. So the 11th it is. What did you have a time in mind, Mark?
Whenever you're able to start.
Or at 6 p.m.
When you
10
do,
o'clock at night? You said whenever, Mark. I mean, so I'm just throwing something out.
How many
You said an hour and a half. Is that what you wanted?
the total?
Yeah. At the most, Tom, 2 hours, but we rarely go quite that long. So if you started, you said 6?
Right. 6.
6, so you'd be done by 7:30, quarter to 8.
Are we good on 6?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So 6 to 7:30 on the 11th,
Okay,
and we're doing that in person.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
we'll be here in person. We'll have a lot of.
Okay.
We tend to want to give handouts for some things rather than everything electronic because we don't always trust where that goes. So, not that we can trust the handouts either; it could be left around somewhere. But that's a model, and some people like being able to write on applications and sit there and read them. So, we do a little bit of a traditional model for that. And we will, it looks like we know we have 5. We probably have 6 to present. We're not done with our screenings. We just began. So it was a beneficial day. Everyone we talked to that we said the potential for you to be a candidate is there. One, what other things do you have going? We want to know if there's any other competitive things. And 2, are you committed? You've seen everybody's watched board meetings. They've made themselves very knowledgeable about District 64. Once you've seen all that and you've heard us, do you commit? This isn't, waste our time. We're not wasting the board's time and we're not wasting our time. And everyone so far has said, I'm in, I'm 100% in. Everything that I've seen is fine as far as my career goes and my career aspirations. That's a place I'd like to work. So I think we're good. You never know cold feet at the end. I had that happen. A friend of mine had that happen last week, and he was just devastated. Somebody pulled out at the end. We try to ensure that does not happen. We're your agents. We're going to hold these people to their promises.
Was it 20 at the end, or did you end up getting more since we last?
I think it's 21 now.
Okay.
We leave it open a few more extra days just in case somebody hears about it lately. There's nothing magical about a cutoff date other than we got to get going. So we may wind up crossing that number.
So I have 2 questions. 21, is that a low number? Is that a high number? Is that an average?
What's our
number?
target, Tom?
Right. I mean, I'm saying comparatively to other searches in years past or other districts, is that a average number, a low number, or a high number?
most of the since the pandemic, most of the searches have turned out candidate pools in the 20s.
Okay.
And
prior to the pandemic,
it would maybe be around 30. But no, we didn't have the 50s, 60s. Okay. Those are memories.
Okay.
We don't see that anymore.
And then the second question: how do you see the 11th going? Like, what? Just give us a quick little outline of how the 11th will go.
So basically, on the 11th, what we'll do is we'll do the profile and give you this profile to keep with you as you look at the candidates and do the interviews and see who sizes themselves up to the profile. Then we're going to talk about the questions. What are the questions you're going to ask? We have to have that all prepared. So all this stuff is preloaded. You can interview the next day if you want. That's how this is all laid out. Then we'll answer some questions. Then we will share with you the applicant data forms for the candidates. So basically, this gives you all their background, where they went to school, where they're currently working, their past work history, reference names, the whole bit. Each is about 6 to 8 pages. And so we'll review those with you. We'll give you the demographics. What's the pool look like? Where did those people who applied come from? What roles and responsibilities do they currently have? So was it all assistant superintendents? Was it all superintendent? We'll give you that backup stuff. So that's why it generates a bit of conversation when we're there. So, and I think that's really what it is.
And the target for that day is to present how many? 3, 2, 4, 5?
6.
We're going to have 5 or 6.
Right. So I'm just clarifying because it's 5, 6, 4. I mean, it's
yeah.
You said 5 or 6. So I mean, what if you wouldn't go over 6?
No.
You wouldn't go under 5?
No.
Okay. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Is that maybe in a week or so he's like, you know what, I got to get rid of 3, or if someone drops, do you put somebody else in their spot? It was where I was leading.
We probably in that case would come with a smaller pool.
Okay.
To be honest.
Thank you. See, we got somewhere with that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom. You said you had another question.
No, I think that one's good for now. So should we? Since we're doing this on the 11th, we'll have our roadmap, we'll have our understanding of the pool, and then you made a comment that we can do our interviews the very next day if we want to.
You'll be prepared.
So what would should we be discussing a date for interviews at that point?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
well, the first thing is, what pattern are you going to use for interview? So
what does that mean? Can you just
so the pattern would be, are you doing, say there are 6. If there's 5, we just reduce it a little bit. But say there's 6, are you going to do 2 per night and do it 3 nights? You're going to do 3 per night over 2 nights? Are you going to do it on a Friday night and a Saturday? What type of a pattern do you see doing?
How long do you think each interview will take?
Hour to an hour and 15 minutes.
I say 3 a night.
I'd say no more than 3. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, three's plenty.
Yeah, if for some reason we end up with 4 people, I say we do them in one night. If we end up with 6, we split it over 2. That's how I would.
And I think I'm happy to do the 12th and 13th.
So I think though we have to think about candidates. We'd be making a decision. So I guess whoever you present.
You've already screened it down to 5, 6. You can tell them the dates tomorrow.
Yeah, unless we present a candidate and there's some objection to that candidate that somebody knows.
Oh, I'll still interview them at that point.
Yeah. So.
What date are you proposing?
The 12th and 13th.
So we're saying board meetings that week, 11th, 12th, 13th.
Yeah.
I just think that's a lot in 1 week. This is my opinion.
I mean,
it doesn't matter. You got to do these. So,
I've got no problem with the 12th or the 13th.
Yeah.
Would you rather we can move it to Monday that week, our meeting? But it seems like everybody's available on the 11th, and when you get that, you go with that.
Well, Monday the 10th is something, right?
Day after Easter.
It is Easter Monday.
Yeah.
But it's not a holiday, is it?
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm not
Not in
sure
the
how
US.
it's treated nowadays. I don't know.
It's considered an observance of
Yeah.
Easter.
Well, let's stay with the 11th then.
Well, the 11th, 12th, 13th is Passover. So I mean, if we're talking about holidays, I'm just going to throw that out as well.
If there is a religious need, then we can always make an exception for for the individuals who are observing
my
Passover.
Easter is going to be following. It's our Holy Week, so I'm going to give up on my Holy Week to get this done. So it's
Okay.
not
So, 12th and 13th, 3 per
Yeah.
night. We'll schedule everybody.
Okay.
And then, are you thinking the same time, the 6 o'clock start, or what
So if
works
you look at it,
typically?
if everyone could be there a little before 6 and you can start at 6,
Yep.
that would be good. Does that work, Carol? Is that
Yes,
good?
for me,
Okay.
6.
So
Yeah, or a little before. That's fine.
6, and then you do your second one at 7:15, and then you do your last one at 8:30. So you're done
By 9:30.
in 9:30 or so.
9:45, 9:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like a regular board.
Let's have our business guy do the math. Do we do the math right, Adam?
So 11, 6 o'clock, 12 and 13, 6 o'clock.
Yes. We all comfortable with that?
I was just checking with Larry. He was good on the 11th. I was just checking with him on the 12th and 13th just to see his availability.
Okay.
I think we're good. I mean, I just asked him though.
Okay. So what's after that, Mark?
Then round 2.
Okay.
So the following week, you'll bring back at the close of your second night of interviews. So after the last one, you'll want to take some time to determine who you'd like to see again, who you'd like to bring back. And it could be 2, it could be 1. Generally, it's 2. It could be 3. We've seen a lot of districts bring 3 back lately.
Okay.
And so you'll need the following week, you'll need nights for them, for those interviews. And we have to decide, do you want to do traditional interview, have them back again, or do you want to do off-campus interview where you would have dinner with your candidates?
I'm fine just doing them in this session, but I think we do want to move quickly because we're at that kind of end of that second window of hiring, and I don't want to lose a good candidate, so I want to move quickly. I'm happy. I know we got a board meeting that Thursday, the 20th, so I'll make myself available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, of that week to basically.
I think Monday's tax day, so Tuesday, Wednesday would probably be good.
Okay. Yeah.
So
But I we can always have catering brought in if we want to have dinner as part of it.
I have tax days the 18th.
I don't know how many dinners I could.
That's Monday.
If we have 2 or 3
Tuesday.
candidates.
Yeah.
One for each?
One for each? Okay.
Or you could have a candidate night, you could bring in dinner, and you could see them again a second time and piggyback those.
Okay.
All in one night.
Yeah.
And then, if the board looks to involve anyone else, would that be in that one?
I was going to get to that
sorry.
next. Yes. So at that stage, when you've got your final candidates narrowed down, that's when you have the option. Remember, we chose a closed search. The option is to have a representative group from the administrative team participate in meeting the candidates and a short, not grilling, but get to know you questions. We give some guidance, and they give you what we call impressions of the candidate. So each person that would participate would fill out this form that we've created to give you the impressions of each candidate, and then you'll be able to read what your administrative team members say.
And is us that also where we would involve the potential successful candidates from the election as well? Okay.
If
Weren't we going to
that's
do
your
that
choice.
earlier though? Because remember we were talking about like you would when we were talking February 9th, I thought it was going to be a little earlier that the um, new people would be involved.
We have them sit in as observers on the first round, and then on the second round give their impressions.
So starting
That's
April
up to you.
11, right?
Yeah, that's up to the boards.
So, and then I think as I talked to Glenn, and remind me if I'm correct on this, that like the board, who was elected to the board, I
Mhm.
think Glenn was talking about to keep it still it's going to be hybrid, but keep it confidential. That the individuals would sign a confidentiality agreement, and your firm would execute that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have that form.
Good.
So, if I'm hearing right, Gareth, you're planning that the candidates or those who are elected.
Or if it is a very close run, we'd invite the both that were close.
Sure.
Because they could still be counted in that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So are you, Kira, were you saying the 12th and 13th to do that? Or is that what you were just saying?
Right, when we start with the interviews.
Initial interviews.
Right.
Yeah, that
Okay.
you can do that.
What does the board think on that?
Right, and that's the thing too. I believe Denise and you and I were involved
Right.
when we hired
Right.
Eric.
Yeah, we just need to know because we have to prepare materials for them. They'll hear everything that we do with you, the seven elected board members. They'll get all that information. They'll be in the room, and that's fine. We have no problem with that.
Okay. So we'll invite them so they can sit in and observe the first round, and then on the second round we'll get their input in terms of
That impression.
the impressions
Yeah.
that there, and as well as now. I just want to go back to something you said earlier that the potential leaking of the name, because if some people are experienced superintendents, they may not want their name out there. So is that how do we what's your recommendation there in beyond this is in terms of these impressions meetings? What would you recommend there?
I think that the key on that is that we impress upon the importance of the confidentiality, and it says that on the form, and it's reinforced. I don't know how much more you can hold over anybody's head if they're not going to guard the confidentiality. Then that's sad because we're adults, and this is an adult responsibility. You have to play on a personal moral code.
Falling short of asking everybody who walks into that room to sign a confidentiality agreement, it really is an honor code.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing, we can head that off, Gareth. The seated superintendent candidates up front, if we ask if it's okay, and they're not concerned about confidentiality, then it becomes a moot point.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think we'll do that. We have one already, and I've already talked to him, and it's not an issue for him.
Okay. It doesn't seem to be an issue for assistants.
No, that's pretty much the expectation for deputies and assistants. We have some people who are candidates who work in the big system, CPS system, and there's political stuff there that if you do the wrong thing, your name gets, kind of hidden away and your career is ended. But we've dealt with that kind of stuff. We're okay with that.
Good. All right.
And now, if I can just clarify, so then you mentioned, Mark, like the superintendent's direct reports, central office staff, and is the board wanting to have the central office staff to be here on the 12th and 13th, or just the following week?
Well, Joel will need to welcome them on the first week, but in the second week, maybe I'd ask them would they want to be part of the process? If you want to nod your head, because I'm open to you being part of the process. I just want to know if you want to be part of the process.
You guys were part of the process last time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a win for the superintendent too, candidate, to see who they would be
support
working
it.
with.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a win-win to have the central office staff involved in both interviews too.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Parisi, you're smiling over there.
You know they want to be part of it.
He's happy.
If I were on the team, I'd want to be part of it. And So that would include, so let me get it straight. They won't be part of the initial interview of the first six. They will be involved in the interview of the finalists.
Yeah, yeah. We're already going to take another evening of their
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Okay.
Pile it on. Except for Joel, unfortunately, he's going to have to welcome the week before.
He knows what he signed up for this.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done this before.
So just to clarify, the 11th is set, the 12th and 13th is set.
Okay.
And what other dates the following week?
Okay, in the 12th and 13th.
Or do we go with 18, 19? Sorry? Oh, that's right.
We didn't determine what pattern
day.
we're going to use.
We just need one day that second time.
I think we booked. Oh yeah.
18. I think we have a.
18.
What happens if let's keep 18 with if people are available on 19th, let's have a placeholder just in case it ends up being 3, and we need the additional night.
All day Tuesday to get.
Because then we got the meeting on the Thursday, right?
Free.
Yeah, on 20. Yeah.
6 o'clock on the 18th.
So we do it traditionally, and we have one person at 6 o'clock. You have some sandwiches or whatever, and then you spend about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, and then the next person comes in. If you have 3, you piggyback all 3. But let's say we target 2. That's definitely done on one night, and then you're done with that. You have deliberation time, and that would be after that second candidate left.
Yep. But I think I'm hearing, should we have the 19th just in case we have
Backup?
3?
Sure.
You just wonder if
you're right. In case it has to
someone
fold over
can't.
to it. Let's say you say, guys, I really have, or we say, hey, there's really 4 we really want to bring back. We might need.
That's true.
We might need that day.
Yeah.
So
let's hold it.
Let's just hold it. Let's call it
Yep.
18, 19.
Okay.
Starting at 6, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So say we got through that phase. Now we've got our candidate, and what's do we put a motion on that Thursday the 20th? Is that's going to be too quick in terms of negotiations for contract and things?
Let's put it this way: the contract template could be ready. Could be ready tonight. Tony could be pulling that whole thing together. Okay. It's the terms that you're going to agree to that have to be worked on. So what I've seen lately is it's been dragging on. Maybe it's because there's been a lot of action earlier, and in talking to the attorney for the Superintendent's Association, he told me he's overwhelmed and he's running like 2 weeks to do a contract. Now, it shouldn't take more than a day. It really shouldn't. But when you're going between the district, the candidate, and in give and take back and forth stuff, then it doesn't automatically mean the attorneys are getting back to each other right away. Tony's got other things going too. But realistically, if everything's prepped, it could be done. Optimistically, I should say, not realistic.
So, I mean,
but it wouldn't be on the public agenda on Tuesday.
No, Thursday.
But I know, but the agenda goes on. I know it's the board meeting is Thursday.
Yeah,
I'm saying the agenda.
You can have a motion with a blank space.
Or you have a special meeting real quick with only one item on the agenda, hiring the superintendent. So you're in and out in 15, 20 minutes. Have a little social
chance to say hi to the community too.
Yeah. We just did that in another district we finished up in Marquardt in DuPage County, and they called a special meeting, took a vote. That was the only item on the agenda. Then had a social. It was really nice. Maybe 40, 50 people came to say hello, and they did a closed search so no one knew the candidate. And I went, and it was a really upbeat night, and so that could happen.
So all these candidates already have their attorneys lined up on who's going to represent them.
They'll use the association, Superintendent's Association attorney
to represent them.
Yeah.
So we just send a note to the association and let them know, hey, don't be the reason why this guy doesn't get the job.
When I know things are coming, I call him.
Okay.
And I say, hey, we're sending one down your way, and that's where he told me he's 2 weeks behind the last phone call, but he got it done. The key is that we lock in the candidates And mid-April, end of April, still we're right on target from what we originally said. And there's 2 months left for transition time. That should be fine. Did I miss something in that list?
I think you wanted to talk about salary at some point.
Yeah.
So I think we can do that in closed session, and I think we should.
Because there's names associated with this.
Well, and we don't want that public right now.
Yeah, so we got everything except for salary parameters and when you said candidate update, were you planning on giving us a more personal update as to what's available, or was it just
right now?
We've got this many people, and okay, so we just salary.
Anything else from Mark Carroll from your perspective?
So what did we decide? Not the 20th or the 20th? Because if there's a 2-week turnaround, then how can we do it on the 20th?
I promise you, he will not take 2 weeks. I'm gonna get on him.
Oh, okay. So we will. Okay, so just we're getting ready to put it on the agenda for the 20th. Then. Okay.
Or I mean, I like
Garrett
the
said
idea
blank.
of Mark said of having a special meeting with an open kind of session. That should. I mean, I like those kind of things.
Yeah,
but
this is a perfect room. You have a table with cake and refreshments. People will come.
But we could put it on the 20th agenda and just pull it.
Yeah, we could.
You just can't decide last minute to put it on.
And we don't have to decide that right now.
No, you don't. You're fine.
Yeah. My recommendation would be to put it on, and then we just pull it as we get closer if things don't look like they're, shaping up for that.
Yes. Yeah. The key is, the most important thing is, when we started this, there was some question, is anybody going to be interested? It's so late in the year and it's all that. Well, we've proven that there is interest. And there are people who have applied as a piece of the update, just a little bit of a teaser. There are people who are not out going after every job that's out there. They've targeted this position, and there's reasons. Several of them have very interesting reasons why they're interested in this district. And I think you'll like those stories, but we'll share those with you in that workshop night.
Perfect.
So we're going to close.
Okay, so I think we are set, Mark. And then I think we're going to go. If you want to stay, we're going to go into closed session.
You want to go over
okay.
The numbers? Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so the board is going to go back into closed session under 2C1, which is the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. And it is 10 o'clock p.m.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Gareth had the motion, Tom had a second. It's 10 p.m. and the board is going to go into closed
Do you
session.
want the roll call?
Oh yeah, roll call vote. Thank you.
Salas?
Yes.